Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and today we have another Ironmouse video. This is also in relation to the VShojo effectively destruction of a company and, non-payment issues. This is the video where Legal Mindset breaks down the entire fucking controversy so far in that of what we know, right? At least from a more legal standpoint. I was coming in from the outside perspective in my last video, just based off of, dealing with contracts before and, how they kind of work. Considering I'm an independent contractor, so I kind of know, and I'm going to guess fairly accurately that a lot of the talents for like any sort of agency, they're all going to be independent contractors, which might be one of the reasons why they haven't seen payment yet, because this company is based in California, right? California has crazy strong labor laws if you're an employee. If you're a contractor, they still have fairly strong labor laws. However, they're not as strong as if you're an employee. So there's still leeway for them to push payments further and further. And it kind of forces them to sue. The problem with a lot of contractors is, subcontractors, right, is many times we can't afford to pay for the suit, or the suit doesn't make sense to pay for it until it hits a certain point. It's kind of like how Target lets people continuously steal from them until it passes the point where it's an actual felony. In this case, if they had gone to a lawyer, they have to make it worth it for them. Like, for instance, I've been stiffed on contracts before. If the amount's underneath like $3,000, it's not worth it for me to pursue it, because unless I want to do it in small claims court or something like that and deal with it myself, because then the filing's like $40, right? But if I wanted to hire a lawyer, the lawyer's probably not going to want it either, because they're going to be like, well, you're going to pay me more than this is worth. And the problem is California is generally one of those states where everyone pays their own legal fees, regardless of who wins or loses. There are a few exceptions, but in general, you are responsible for your own legal fees. So even if I did win the $3,000, I'd probably be paying my lawyer $4,000 or more. So it'd be more of a moral victory, but it wouldn't necessarily be a very good financial victory, right? So that's why a lot of subcontractors don't even bother to use their rights, even if California gives them to you. Now, that's just my assumption and how I think it works, but let's see what someone who actually has a legal background thinks. And like I said, go to Legal Mindset's channel and watch it there. I think there's two versions of this one. We're doing the long one, but there's also he does like fast facts versions for people who don't want to sit there for 2 hours and got the 20-minute videos. All right, let's get into it.
Let's jump right into it, guys. Let's jump right into it. With what happened here with Ironmouse ending VShojo. Now, it's very important that we think about this and understand. I always put a little flag here for the jurisdiction. This is going down in America.
And that's the big thing that's different here. Holy crap. Not only is it going down in America, it's going down in California. This is like the one place where the amount of basically the ability for subcontractors to actually do something who have enough money. California is like the one place where they're like, yeah, let's fucking screw them over. Now, here's the thing though. It's one thing for a subcontractor to be missing money, but for the fact that they didn't give the money to the charity, that's the big thing that's going to screw this company over, I think.
This is going down in
Allegedly.
America because VShojo is a U.S. company, and Ironmouse, even as a Puerto Rican resident, is still able to file claims in U.S. court. This completely changes the game for the analysis.
Right? And then here's the other thing. Even if you're outside of the U.S., California has extra special things in place to where you can still sue companies even if you live outside the U.S., which is crazy.
The analysis for HoloLive and for Nijisanji and the Japanese corporations doesn't apply here. This applies America rules, right? Which makes it very different.
Yeah, America has a lot of litigious stuff in place. There's not Nijisanji will survive. No matter how many dumbass things happen to them, and even if it's all their fault. An American company, though, they're going to have a lot more of a problem.
The stuff that was happening in Japan with them abusing overseas talent. It's a much different one. And not just America. Oh, no, not just America. California.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the California thing. That's really the big thing here.
Yeah. California. It's one case in which I am going to be glad about their strong protections. So let's continue here. Obviously, we had...
Okay, to be fair, California has strong protections in a bunch of different ways, which actually makes it a detriment for a lot of cases. But yeah, no, I get where he's coming from.
The piece from Ironmouse. Now, like I said, in my Fast Facts version, I will not play this, but here I do want you guys to hear it from her. I'm going to pause a couple times, and I won't play 100% of it. We'll get to where she's talking about the relevant parts, but I want you to hear it from her, and I want anybody that's not caught up on this to have some background here. So here's from her lips what happened.
I am leaving VShojo. Unfortunately, I recently found out that for the past couple of months, I have been misled by VShojo. With the information that I currently have, I believe that I am owed a significant amount of funds.
So stop there. Claim number one, unpaid wages or unpaid.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Now, that's still harder with how subcontractors work. Now, here's the thing that actually I originally thought that maybe, because if you take a look at VShojo's like main page, not their website, you can actually search up their basically their estimated yearly income and a few other things about their company. For instance, employees, right? I initially thought maybe their talent are considered employees because they're a California company versus independent contractors, and that would be part of their 29 employees. Sorry. But from what it's kind of feeling like is if they're all independent contractors for talent, that means VShojo has an annual more or less income based off of just figures you can find online of around $2.9 to $3 million a year. That's their income. But that means they also have 29 or 27 other employees on the books that are regular employees. That does not sound sustainable in any way on top of the talent they're paying, because that means each employee is only worth about $100,000 of company revenue, right? Obviously, you're not necessarily paying every employee that. A lot of employees are going to be getting $50,000 or less, etc. But this is a San Francisco-based company, and if everyone's located in San Francisco, that means they need a lot more money. Like, let's say half the people are located outside of San Francisco, right? And only half are located in. It doesn't matter. The reality is they need a lot more income than they're probably pulling in, which is why a lot of their talent isn't getting paid, because California, for the most part, requires employees to be paid first, right? So all the employees are going to get paid, but they're all subcontractors, and that's where their payments are being held and held and held. And that also brings up the question, did they take the $500,000 because they had no money for other regular bills and they were required by law to pay their employees? And they were just hoping that they could recover in the future in like this never-ending like debt basically scenario, right? But the problem is when you take from a charity, that's a different level, and that can put you in fucking prison as a company.
Paid payments, right? Now they're going to try.
Oh, a bunch of people said I need to go back 5 seconds.
Claim number one, unpaid wages or unpaid payments, right? Now they're going to try to say she's an independent contractor and that's a payment, and we're going to talk about that status because that's very relevant.
That is relevant.
The whole battle I've been fighting since Niji Sanji is to make an understanding that VTubers, the talent, are employees. They're not independent contractors.
Like, I understand where he's coming from. That's unlikely to change. You might be able to get a company like in the U.S. in California specifically to maybe come to that, but you're going to have the state itself basically enforce that. It is highly unlikely you'll be able to get them into employee status across the industry, and that's just because every industry has this issue. I do tons of subcontracting work, and it's a huge pain in a lot of ways. There are some freedoms to it, but there's a lot of problems with it. So that's the other thing. So I don't think there's a chance, a real chance in the next 20 years for any major change for that happening.
Because the level of control, even in VShojo, and I've seen the contract, even in VShojo, I think they should be classified as employees.
They
at least
should
under
be.
The scope of labor law. They've not paid her. That's number one. right? So just put that down as number one. Then we're going to get to number two.
which I have not been paid. And most importantly, the thing that hurts me the most is that the Immune Deficiency Foundation, which is the most important charity to me, and also the reason why I'm here today, is owed over $500,000 from.
Over $500,000.
And this is where I think they were basically financially insolvent at this point, because the first time she did it, they paid almost instantly, right? Because they had all that extra money from the $11 million injection, that, at least from what I could find, right? The question to me, though, is that money, how is that supposed to be paid back? Because that had to be a low-interest loan of some sort, right? So, and this next one, they just kept pushing the bar further and further and further, and you're like, they have no money. They have, and the problem is you can't just like, I understand reallocating subcontractor money. You could probably get away with that for like 4 to 6 months. It's not right morally, but you could probably do it legally and have no problem. But reallocating fundraiser money, that is generally not something that is wise under any circumstances. It's better to go almost bankrupt as long as you drop off that money first.
Was misallocated or other in dollars. That was misallocated or otherwise not
Allegedly,
transferred to the charity by VShojo. That is potentially criminal.
Yep. That's what I'm thinking.
Very, very, very extreme. And that's the one where there's massive amounts of liability on VShojo for $500,000 of misallocated charity stuff. That's where people can go to prison.
Yep.
Not for the wages stuff. The wages stuff is moral.
I'm waiting for them to go to prison if they pay it.
There might be try to fighting that, and there's ways they can fight that. We're going to talk about bankruptcy. But the charity stuff,
like you can fight the bankruptcy. Let's say they go into bankruptcy and just don't pay their talent. Which they can technically do. They can be like, we just don't physically have the funds, and that's unfortunate. But they can basically screw over all their independent contractors and more or less be somewhat fine. They might eventually have to come up with some sort of payment plan, but if the company goes completely bankrupt, everyone might just be screwed in that regard. However, the charity stuff is generally like getting like a student loan. It's forever. Or you just go to prison because that becomes a criminal case, right? So I'm like, when I heard that, I'm like, what the fuck? That is bullshit.
Ways they can fight that. We're going to talk about bankruptcy. But the charity stuff, that's where you don't F around.
Yep.
And that's where... And that's also what gets me really mad, because this is a charity, and
that's
you're going to hear
too.
from her in her own voice. But this is a charity that is near and dear to her. It relates to her condition. It's something that people have been passionate about. Connor VA has been helping her out for a while. People have been gifting her for this. Like her or not, as a human being, you can empathize with that condition, which is extremely severe and which restricts your life in such a horrible way. And any way in which...
Yeah, like I'm like moderately blind and tone deaf and whatever, but that doesn't technically restrict me from going outside. Yeah, I can't really drive, but I can actually go outside, get an Uber, whatever. I'm not stuck inside, risking anything major from getting a cold or anything like that. So that's a totally different thing. So that totally makes sense. It was just insane when I heard that was charity fraud in here. I'm like, it's charity fraud from a company too, which is crazy. Like, I have seen individuals not give out charity money and whatnot, but it's rare to see companies blatantly do something so stupid to themselves.
Severe, and which restricts your life in such a horrible way. And any way in which you could try to alleviate that or make that better is certainly a net good or a net benefit for humanity. And to shaft them out of their money, to not pay them, it's worse than not paying the wages. That's a level of disgustingness that is even beyond a wage. Right now, not paying the wage is also bad, right? But it's to me,
I think they were just out of money. I think they're literally, and this is just a guess, right? I'm guessing at the time they were hemorrhaging money or they were actually negative. So, for instance, they could have actually missed payments to their actual staff by a couple of weeks and then be like, well, we have to pay our staff. We don't have a choice. We have to pay them somehow. And this $500,000, we could do that. Now, what they could have done is allocated $100,000 to the charity and then be like, yeah, we're going to drop it off every month or so until yada yada. And that could have extended it further, and they may not have ever hit this problem, but it'd still be wrong. Now, the question is, though, is if they were going negative every single month, they would never have been able to recover. And part of that would have been probably that merchandise screw up they had with the another, which I wonder if it was all their fault or not. So a lot of people, from what I checked, they said they had an issue with their, another company they were working with for merchandising. I wonder if VShojo wasn't paying them. And that's why they switched everything in-house to make it cheaper, but then they realized they may not be able to. I don't know, there's some interesting things about that. The problem is because this is a private company, there are a lot of things that are locked behind certain walls that we just don't know yet. Upside is, if this becomes some sort of lawsuit, it's going to be dropped publicly on places like Court Listener, and we can read through all of the initial filings and potential transcripts in real time as they're dropped. So that's going to be interesting, depending on how far this goes. So yeah, I'm very interested in this. I love how this is my introduction into like the wider VTubing community. Fucking company just starts screwing over entire talent groups.
Even beyond a wage, right? Now, not paying the wage is also bad, right? But it's, to me, in my mind, and this is my personal opinion, not legal opinion, I think that's terrible. I think it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Once agree. Again, it's not just her that was disappointed about this. It's the donors. It's the donors as well.
Everyone's donating hundreds of thousands
money thinking it was going to go to charity, not going to pay VShojo and not going to deal with their financial problems, which we're going to talk about.
VShojo, I know that this is a lot, and it's very important for me to be honest with all of you. I really want to tell you everything, but unfortunately right now, I have been instructed by my attorney to wait for more of the legal procedure to unfold.
And I'm going to talk to you about this. So hear what she just said. She said, wait for the legal procedure to unfold. I thought about this a lot, and I did a lot of research today, and I was thinking about this. I put on my little lawyer hat, and I woke up. Because, by the way, guys, this all happened while I was sleeping. So when I woke...
So I wonder if the filing has already been put through. And maybe I just haven't searched for the right term yet on it.
Up and I saw this. It was a 5-alarm fire. And I was immediately doing research. I was immediately working on this. I've been working on this all day for you guys, thinking about this all day for you guys. When she said that, she didn't say, I'm under an NDA and I can't speak about it.
That's true. NDAs, though, tend to have more limits than you'd think with subcontractors versus like employees. So there is that. While NDAs are very extensive in a lot of ways, you can't necessarily enforce them entirely, especially like, for instance, if it's a criminal case, which is the potential charity fraud, there's no NDA in the world can stop you from talking about that. That's just not a thing. You can't even be sued for that. You could be like, they can't say jack shit. So that means there's a decent chance that there's a criminal component to this that's actually in the works. So
didn't say that.
Let's go back.
I'm under an NDA and I can't speak about it. She didn't say that. She said, I'm going to wait for the legal process. That's a much different thing. So what I will say to you guys is respect the girls, respect where they're at. Don't try to push them for more information because there's a lot they can't say because they're waiting on the legal process. And their own lawyer might say, even though you could say this, even though you could
say it, don't do it, because then you're going to end up with like for instance, McNally and Proven Industries was a very interesting case. If you want to take a look at that one, I think it was Runkle the Bailey. They have a really good analysis of that one. And there, McNally did a lot of great in that one, but Proven got fucked over just because of their own stupidity and the way they filed shit. But you shouldn't really be talking about certain types of legal stuff. You can mention that you left or whatever, but you got to be very, very careful, regardless of all the internet drama that people want.
Because they're waiting on the legal process, and their own lawyer might say, even though you could say this, even though we're going to be able to get rid of the NDA and get rid of the confidentiality, and we're going to get you out from under that, you shouldn't say it yet, or you should wait till this thing goes forward. I respect that. I respect their attorney's decision. I think that's fine.
That's good.
So I would say, please, please, please do not pressure the talents or their friends or whatever to say more than they can right now, because there are things they just literally cannot talk about.
Well, yeah.
But what that means is that she does not feel, and I believe her attorney probably doesn't feel, that whatever NDA and confidentiality provisions were applied to her, which based on my review of a previous VShojo contract.
Ooh, see, I couldn't find a previous contract. I want to hear this one. I found a lot of external stuff about their, average income per year, about how they were funded initially around 2020 with $11 million bonus, and it's probably burned through by now. And I found a lot of the basic stuff, but I could not find a contract, even if it's an older contract that may not be 100% accurate. A lot of that stuff doesn't change all that much.
Were applied to her, which based on my review of a previous VShojo contract, they do exist. They are in the standard contract that I saw, not her contract.
NDAs are still limited,
previous
though.
Contract from VShojo. Those provisions would be thrown out based on what happened. And there's nothing in any contract that can stop you from dealing with wrongs, whether it's unpaid payments or reporting a crime.
Yep, yeah. And a lot of people are like, NDAs are like ironclad. I'm like, no, they're not. They may be written to be ironclad, but they're not necessarily enforceable, which is the big thing.
Dealing with wrongs, whether it's unpaid payments or reporting a crime of misallocation.
By the way, we're going back, sorry, I hit my mic. I'm been going back a few seconds every major pause because the audio kind of cuts out. So just keep that in mind.
Charity funds, right? There's nothing in any contract in the world that's going to stop you from talking about a charity not getting $500,000.
Yep.
Let's continue.
So one day I will be able to tell you the full story. But for now, I just need to let you know that I will no longer be a part of VShojo. If you give me a moment of your time,
at least she's big enough to become independent.
A little bit about myself. I know for a lot of people right now that this might be the first time you're ever watching me. I became a VTuber because...
And I know that's true, by the way, for a lot of my audience. A lot of my audience, some of you guys out there are not VTuber fans. For those that don't know, Ironmouse is not just one of the most talented VTubers, she's one of the most popular VTubers. She's broken several records. She's of wild acclaim.
Like, I'm not really a huge VTuber fan. Well, okay, that's not 100% true yet because I've been watching all the neuro videos. We'll say I wasn't really into the space until maybe March of this year, or April, end of April probably. But even then, I knew of Ironmouse just from walking around. I could see her stuff all over YouTube, but my wife watches her, so there's that too. So, but I wasn't ever really a fan, or really, it's more of I never looked into her channel really, which is fine. But yeah, no, I totally get it. But I know she's a big deal in the VTuber space just from the amount of people that subscribe to her and whatnot. So I don't know if there's any other controversies or anything around her. Probably not, but everyone's got something.
VTuber. She's broken several records. She's of wild acclaim. She's wildly popular. She's loved by her fans. This is a absolutely outstanding talent in the world. And if there's any proof, I always say to people that are VTuber skeptics, if there's any proof that VTubing can allow people a life that is so different than what they would have without VTubing, it's Ironmouse. Ironmouse was able to shine because she was a VTuber. So she's absolutely, I would say, out there in the largest players in the industry at all out there in the world, right? I think that's fair to say. I think that's objective based on data. And I think that's very, very important to the context of all of this, is that she is massive, she is beloved, and she's talented.
I really wanted to make friends.
And by the way,
Okay.
I say that whether you think she's your Oshi or not. You don't need
I'm not even gonna look that up. I don't know what that means. You can tell me in the comments if you want, but
her to be your Oshi or be your number one, or you don't even need to
one.
like her
Okay.
like strongly. You just appreciate her skills. You know, even people I don't like, I appreciate who they are, right? Even if it's not somebody that's your number one.
Imagine if you said that about Johnny Smalley. I don't like, but I can appreciate who they are. Okay, you know for a fact Legal Mindset would never say that shit about him.
You can still appreciate their talents, their benefits. And Ironmouse has brought so much to VTubing. I think that's praiseworthy, right? And certainly the work she's done for charity is absolutely praiseworthy.
Only due to the fact that I have a primary immune deficiency disease called CVID. I basically have a low to near non-functioning immune system, which means I get sick a lot.
And easily.
And it caused me to remain isolated for long periods of my life. So then I found streaming, and I thought about giving it a try because I wanted to see if I could make some friends online, because I honestly couldn't ever leave my room. I never really expected to grow an audience or anything. It was...
I mean, that's the upside, not being able to leave your room. You can stream for like 12 to 14 hours a day. But that's like the only upside.
one of the last things on my mind. I just thought that I would stream to, 5 to 10 people and just hang out from time to time.
It's like hundreds of thousands now.
Play games and just continue on with my life.
But, I mean, to be fair, I thought I was going to get my channel up to maybe 50 subscribers. Bunch of you weirdos like me, so all right.
Unfortunately, I was too scared to stream with my face. So a friend of mine recommended that I try an app called FaceRig that would allow me to use an anime avatar to stream. And that's how I started VTubing. It took me a while to take it seriously and even begin to think about maybe being able to grow a community and even make this a career. I think I really started to take it seriously around the time when I was approached to join VShojo, and it was through VShojo that I was able to grow into the Ironmouse that I am today. When I was approached in 2020 and asked to join VShojo...
Jeez, how many people are joining his membership channel? Holy fuck.
It seemed like a good idea, but I honestly did not know if I could ever be a corporal VTuber because I felt like I just couldn't. In my mind, I saw myself as unhireable, which is why streaming worked for me. I had no boss, no strict rules.
That's another thing. Like, a lot of subcontractor jobs actually do work out for a lot of people who are, like, stuck in their houses and whatnot. Like, I can't drive anymore for the most part. It would make commuting insanely expensive if I had to take an Uber every single day to an office 45 minutes from my house. That'd be like $80 one way, right? So being able to work from home is great in a lot of ways. Now, I don't always have the opportunity to work on the channel all the time, but I do my absolute best to get to at least a third of the videos you guys request from me. But as for my other stuff, the ability to work from home makes what I currently do actually a viable solution, which I totally get from where she's coming from.
I had no hours.
And by the way, that's a massive, massive benefit of streaming, right? And especially if you're indie, especially if you're working for yourself, especially if you're somebody who's able to dictate your own time, that is a massive benefit of streaming, is you're able to do what you want on your own. And that's, by the way, the key to their argument that you're an independent contractor, because you've got a lot of flexibility for that, because you don't have like a direct, maybe a direct boss, right?
Yeah, but that limits you so much in a lot of ways. And that's where a lot of people screw up on their first couple of contracts. Like, for instance, a lot of VTubers, when they join an agency for the first time, they're joining for one major reason. And you don't need to join. Someone actually did mention that in my last video. They're like, well, it's not really important. I'm like, it isn't and it is. It's important in the fact that if you're a small streamer, you may need a more stable income. And if you want that stable income, joining an agency generally gives you at minimum a stable base level income to where you're not completely fucking screwed. For instance, a lot of people may not be able to afford to jump. Like, for instance, if you're in a small streamer, you may not be able to afford. Like, 1 month you could have, you know, $8,000 in income, which would be amazing. The next month you could have $400 in income, and that's fine as long as you know how to save correctly and adjust correctly. But that takes a bit of time and effort to figure out, right? You're kind of like that school teacher in a sense, in the fact that you need time to figure out how to balance slow months and on fire months, right? And whereas if you join an agency, generally you get a more stable income, even if there's some downsides to it. So the same goes for like independent contractor joining a company. If I'm doing a job that's only 3 to 5 weeks, I may charge higher for my work just because I know I'm going to need some sort of like cushion to offset to the next job, right? Whereas if I'm joining a company that has a renewing contract that renews every 4 months or so, I'm much more likely to take a few, I guess, losses in certain ways, just so I have more stable income. And that was especially true, like right at the beginning. There's some shit contracts you can take, regardless of the field you're in, to where you completely screw yourself over in a ton of ways. And then you kind of feel guilty about leaving, even if you're almost going homeless, right? So in this case, it's like, for instance, I guess, who'd they say? There's someone else part of this, not Ironmouse, but Kson. Kson, apparently they owe like a ton of money, like over $100,000 to, and that's red flags galore in my books. But you know, she might not be able to, like, you know, survive basically because they're like, let's say you know, they owed her 25,000 and they only paid her 10,000 a month, right? That would have been like my big thing, and been like, okay, I need to save like as much as I possibly can till I can figure out why payments aren't coming in, because there's something wrong here. But then you could try to figure out how to split your payments out. But the problem is, when you join a lot of companies like this or agencies like this, money goes through them first and then back out to you. So the problem with that is, what happens when they can't afford to give you that money back, even though you're the one who did all the work for it as an independent contractor, especially with how contracts are written. It requires you to sue them, and they're counting on the fact that you don't have enough money to sue them potentially, because they're the ones controlling all the money in the first place. And they're hoping you hadn't saved enough to afford the lawsuit. So that's the thing. So that's maybe why some of this took so much longer for people to start dropping out. Like, but we'll see. That's just random speculation, right?
Maybe you have direction or requirements for streaming, minimum requirements, but you don't have anybody saying, hey, you have to stream at X time. You know, hey, you need to stream maybe a couple times a week or whatever quota per month, but you don't have to stream.
That's the upside
every
of the
single
contract.
day, right, etc. Or you don't
just have to get the work done. You don't have to
every
have
single day.
9
You
to
feel
5.
bad. You can take some time off. You can move the stream time, like I did when I wanted to bump it back an hour to give Kson some room to breathe. I think that's an amazing thing, and I think for a girl like her,
we could
that
check
would have
out the
trouble
Kson
in a
video.
traditional employment context. I mean, it'd be very difficult for a employer to accommodate a condition like hers. I think this was a golden opportunity to be able to say, hey, you can be in a safe, sanitary, clean environment.
I mean, most companies wouldn't bother. They would just be like, oh, okay, we'll think about it, and then just never call her back.
I think this was a golden opportunity to be able to say, hey, you can be in a safe, sanitary, clean environment that it's safe for you, and be able to do this. It's a unique thing that really only happens in our era, right? In another era, this would not be possible.
They would just be like, you're fucked.
You know, Ironmouse is a thing. It was an amazing thing. So I think that's one of the, you know, kind of white pill good things about, you know, the place we're at right now in history and technology, is that people like Ironmouse can be given a voice.
No expectations. It was all up to me. And due to the fact that I have lived my life chronically ill and being unable to do much of anything, I just felt like there was no way that anyone would ever take me or want me. For a while, I was struggling to make a decision because I was afraid about my anonymity.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
And afraid about trusting people, because I felt like every time I put my trust in people, it always ends in grief for me. So I was worried about expectations and a million and one other things. But I ultimately decided to join VShojo. It really pains me that I am unable to fully explain why I am leaving. But for right now, here's what I am allowed to share with you.
So this is what she probably was told by her lawyer. So I imagine she had a conversation with her lawyer, and this is what she's allowed to say based on what her lawyer said. Okay, you can say this part.
I really
I
hope
would
she
always
had
be
that
told
conversation.
how important I was for the company. And I was always told that I was needed in order for the company to succeed.
Yeah, that's
Although
not
that
good.
was very positive to hear,
That's
it
bad.
put a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on me to the point where I felt guilt tripped.
If your company is relying on a single talent to succeed, that talent should go independent automatically. I'm just saying. Or you should be fucking worshiping the ground they walk on and do everything they possibly want. Because without them, you're fucked.
In designing, I felt responsible for everybody. I felt responsible for staff and talent alike. And I felt like if I didn't do this and if I didn't stay, I was hurting everybody. And
This is by the way, this is corporate gaslighting.
Yep.
Just to understand. This is
Oh my God. That happens all the time. Luckily, I was never in a position to where they were like, yeah, we need you or our entire fucking hospital grid is going to go down. I don't even know if that happened to any of our teams. To be fair, we never really dealt with any like major hacks or anything, and then we were always setting up networks, so which is totally different category. But yeah, I've never really been in a job where they're like, yeah, if we don't have you, we are totally fucked. It's all on you if we go under. I'd be like, sucks to be you. Pay me money first up front because I don't trust you guys anymore.
Absolutely corporate gaslighting, and this is something that can happen to a top tier player in the system, especially if
yeah, well, I was never a top tier player, that's the thing, but I could see that happening for like certain types of companies, definitely independent contractors in any sort of talent type agency. That makes total sense because for instance, let's say Ironmouse was bringing in $40 million a year, right? Obviously, the random number, but let's say she was bringing in $40 million a year. That'd be plenty for a single company to manage and work with one single talent for 10 years. That'd be easy.
happen to a top tier player in the system, especially if they see you as vulnerable to that. So it seems like based on what you're saying, which I have no reason to believe is not true, that they were gaslighting her up to say, hey, look, you're supporting everything. You're our number one star. You're keeping this alive.
Especially if they said this out,
we
like,
won't be able to pay our bills. We won't
in
keep the lights on. Which, by the way, I do believe this is true. And I do believe that.
Like, yeah, I would so far believe this is true as well, because if the lawyer's saying that's okay to say this shit, then they probably have a bunch of ways to back this shit up. Here's the thing. If VShojo said this out in an email, it screws them even more. But we'll have to see.
Hey, I do believe this is true. And I do believe that they're already losing money. So without Ironmouse, without their stars, and particularly, Kson, the others, they're financially dead in the water. There's no way that if they were losing money beforehand, which we're going to talk about.
I think they were actually already insolvent. I think they were well below. Like, I think they were just barely surviving, basically on fumes at that point. Because I understand they were paying their internal employees, but because they weren't paying, it wasn't they weren't just paying Ironmouse or her charity thing. They weren't paying like anyone, which that's like, I bet you they might be they were probably trying to entice new VTuber talent to come in, right? And they were probably potentially offering to pay them right away off the bat. It kind of reminds me of there was a company It was a huge YouTuber type company that sold merchandise for huge, massive creators, right? And they screwed them all over because what they were doing was they were bringing in talent and paying for insane shit to bring them on board, but they weren't like holding on to that money to actually make the product to ship out to people. I can't remember that. It was like some random plush company or something like that, or it was like a major like retailer company that only worked with YouTubers. And at the beginning, they all started out, they probably started out just like VShojo as a company that they really, really wanted it to succeed and be ethical and whatnot. But once you start getting to the point where you're negative, you're like, well, I got to make a choice. And generally that choice is bad.
They're financially dead in the water. There's no way that if they were losing money beforehand, which we're going to talk about, they're able to recover after losing their most profitable VTubers. That's
they're
ridiculous,
fucked.
right? That's absolutely preposterous. There's no loan in the world that would be given to these people to make up for the income that's coming in.
They're in San Francisco. They might still be able to get a loan. Probably not, but maybe.
Loan in the world that would be given to these people to make up for the income that's coming in. It's just not going to happen. Beyond that, what they did to
pay
her
the loan back
was absolutely abusive because they knew that they could withdraw her payments with telling her, hey, we need this for the company. We need this to keep the staff paid, right? To keep the people that you love at the company, right? And abusing her personal relationships with staff.
As soon as that would have been mentioned, I would have been like, okay, you guys are how far underwater? That doesn't make any sense, right? As soon as I would have heard that, I would be like, I need another job. I need to start looking right the fuck now.
People that you love at the company, right? And abusing her personal relationships with staff to keep from paying her, withhold payments, etc. Absolutely disgusting corporate behavior.
It was destroying everybody's life, but this didn't feel right with me, and I began to feel extremely uncomfortable. As my viewers know, privacy has always been one of my biggest concerns. I've had a lot of scary experiences in my life, so...
Oh, yeah. I just recently heard about what happened with Camilla and that random lunatic fan who stalked her to her house with a gift with an AirTag built into the thing. Just so you guys know, if I ever get super popular and up to 100,000 subscribers or more, okay, let's go with 500,000 subscribers. I'm never doing a meet and greet ever. I know a lot of you are saying, but it's like one out of every 500 who just loses their fucking shit and becomes a crazy person. That's also why I stopped doing the political channel, because the amount of death threats you get on that is just insane. You basically got to live outside of you got to live on another fucking planet to be safe enough. All right, let's go back to the actual video.
One of my biggest concerns. I've had a lot of scary experiences in my life. So one amazing thing for me was the fact that VShojo handled all my payments, and it meant that I never had to give out any of my personal information. So that was always a blessing to me. As time went on, I decided that I wanted to try to start pulling out my remaining funds.
That was the weird thing
I
for me.
wanted to start taking over my own finances. This is what led me to this point. Throughout the years...
So that's a good implication there. So listen to what she said. Pulling out my money.
See, this was what really bugged me, and I really want to know what he says. So this is going to be very interesting.
So what they probably did, and this is a speculation, but it's a fair speculation on the way she just said that. What they probably did was, instead of paying her, they said, oh, we're going to put your money aside and we'll pay you later.
Yeah, that's weird. Why the hell would you even agree to that? Like, I would have been like, no, you're going to pay me now or I'm going to stop my work for you today. Which I understand, though. This is like her first contract. She's basically working for a company she thought she'd never get to. That's the big thing for her, though. You know, there's hindsight's 1, 2020, and 2, if you've done like 20 or let's say 10 shit contracts in your life, you're like, well, guess what? 11 through 100 is not going to be shit. I'm going to pay attention to everything here and make sure all this shit's, on the up and up, versus actually signing insane stuff. So yeah, this is what was weird to me. So I'm like, why would you do that? But then I'm like sitting there and thinking to myself, what did I do for my first contracts? And I'm like, I did some equally stupid shit, which equally screwed me over. So like maybe I'm not losing $100,000 or something, but I definitely lost $2,000 and $3,000 here and there, and there was no real recourse I had at all. So yeah, but when I heard that, I was like, what the fuck?
Paying her, they said, oh, we're going to put your money aside and we'll pay you later. Well, they weren't putting it aside. They were putting it into people's pockets.
Yeah.
They
were paying for business expenses.
I mean, she wasn't paid. So ultimately, they didn't put it aside because they would have just paid her.
Or the charity.
When she asked for the money, they would have said, hey, here's the check. You're done. You're off the hook. They didn't do that. So they were taking the money and
which
putting it elsewhere.
Which means they didn't have it.
That's very, very much. Yeah, it's an IOU under the trust me, bro provision.
Connor and I have raised around $4 million for the Immune Deficiency Foundation. The majority of the money raised is through Tiltify at events like the cyclothon, the charity auction,
that looks fun,
and other miscellaneous events that we've had. However, because of the success of my first subathon, I decided to donate half the earnings of my following 2 subathons to the Immune Deficiency Foundation. The first time I tried this, it worked great. Over 200,000 people supported me, and because of that, we raised over $329,000.
Oh, geez. Originally, I know she said it in the original video. I still thought it was $250,000 for some reason. That was almost an extra $100,000 more.
$350 to the Immune Deficiency Foundation. Because the money came from my Twitch revenue instead of a Tiltify link, it required VShojo to make the donation on my...
That's the key there. There's the key, guys.
This is where I was like, what the fuck?
It wasn't a direct donation. It was through the funding mechanism controlled by Twitch. The funding mechanism controlled by VShojo. So VShojo controlled that revenue stream. That's the legal key here. And now what the link in but
that doesn't really matter though in the grand scheme of things, because it's a charity drive directly. It doesn't matter what the fuck VShojo wanted to do with the money. They shouldn't have been legally allowed to do anything but donate it. And the fact that they probably held on to it to pay internal expenses is what's going to really fuck them over, I think, in long term.
In the description is the Tiltify link, which is direct to the charity, right? So if you feel to donate to that, it's not going to go to VShojo's pocket. So once again, if you feel like making up for this or feel like giving a little bit, or maybe you just heard about Ironmouse now and you feel sympathetic or empathetic for the story, please go ahead and donate. I'm going to donate to it as well. So everybody, that link is pinned in the description. I'm also going to pin it in the comments after the video, just so you guys know.
On my behalf, they promptly sent the payment, and the subathon was a huge success. So
yeah, by the way, they sent that initial $300,000 payment because they had at least 11 million or so, or around that point, in the bank from their initial capital investment from that capital venture company, right? They just looped that. So they had a ton of money at the time, but once the VTuber stopped getting paid, they should have stopped doing any major events through them, because then they should have been like, there's something wrong here. What's going on? Someone should have been answering questions, and maybe a bunch of people did, but because maybe they weren't allowed to talk to each other about certain things, so there could have been that problem.
So I decided to do it again the next year. My last subathon was one of the biggest events I've ever done. The support was overwhelming, and I ended up getting over 300,000 subscribers.
Jeez.
And breaking the all-time sub record. But this also meant that we had raised $515,000.
Damn.
For the Immune Deficiency Foundation. I once again asked VShojo to make the donation on my behalf, but unfortunately, still a year later, VShojo has not paid the charity.
That means they were hemorrhaging money.
There is no reason why VShojo would not pay after 1 year. Let me be very clear about this.
There's no reason they should have. They wouldn't pay after 1 fucking month, other than the fact that they didn't have the money and they spent it.
I understand what a corpo might try to do with delaying payment to a charity. What they might try to do is they might try to wait for the tax year.
Oh, that makes
maybe they're
sense.
like, okay, we want to donate in.
I could see that happening, but they would have to have had that written down. They would have to also had they would have sent a note to the charity and then asked them what the best solution would have been for that. That could have made sense. But
this tax year, because we want to deduct this. So we're going to deduct this from our taxes by donating in a certain tax year. It's been 1 year. They've had time to do that. If they were trying to play with like, oh, our year and our fiscal year ends in September. So, this was happening in, early 2024. We're going to do it in late 2024, whatever. Okay, maybe, sure, maybe. It's 1 year later. There's no legitimate reason for not paying that money out after 1 year. There's no reason they can come up or excuse they can come up with that would say,
they just need to hold on to it for 10 years in an account and save it. No one's ever done that shit before.
But yeah, we were really intending to pay that. We always intended to pay that. No, there's no really legitimate reason for not directing those funds to the charity at this point, 1 year later.
Immune Deficiency Foundation means the world to me. Connor and I have both spent a ton of energy.
By the way, reason other than they don't have the cash and they already spent it. That's not a legitimate reason.
Time
right?
And resources.
Imagine that was a legit reason. Oh, we spent
we're
it.
So proud to be able to say that we've raised nearly $4 million for charity.
This is also why a lot of companies don't do charity drives and things like that. They just automatically donate money that they've earned themselves versus doing a charity drive. So nothing can ever be considered sketchy. Like they might put their logo on something for like a charity event, but they generally, what they do is they pay for that spot in advance with something versus actually like donating the money after the fact. So there's that.
Almost always raise money for the Immune Deficiency Foundation. They help people with primary immune deficiency diseases, or PI, which are inherited disorders where a part of the body's immune system is missing or doesn't function properly, which makes people like me more prone to infection. And this includes over 450 different conditions. The Immune Deficiency Foundation is a charity that is near and dear to my heart.
I wonder if my eye falls underneath that category. Probably not.
And has a particular significance in my life. When my health first started getting really bad, the Immune Deficiency Foundation helped me immensely when I really had nowhere else to turn.
Sorry, and someone bring up the Amber Heard argument, like I pledged to donate. Yeah, no, that's not going to work here, guys, because they were the fiduciary of that money, and it was directed clearly and intended for the immunodeficiency fund. So right. I just want to debunk
they shouldn't have been legally allowed to do anything other than to send that money. And the fact that they did effectively hold on to this, even if they were going to plan on holding it for a year, like he said, for tax purposes, they should have made that abundantly fucking clear. And apparently they didn't say shit. Now, we are coming in as a outside perspective. Maybe we're missing some information, but there's a lot of VTubers who are dropping that company for other reasons and maybe similar reasons. So something's going on.
She's going to do the Amber Heard thing. That's not going to work in the scenario. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that analysis.
I was terrified. I was lonely and I was confused. I honestly didn't really know what was going on. And I never ever want anyone else to go through that. This entire situation has broken me. I just wanted to do something good and to give back to a community that helped me. But unfortunately, that's not the case. As much as I would like to continue to talk about this, unfortunately, I can't. So, to recap, I believe that I am owed a significant amount of funds.
I wonder how much that is.
Which I have not been paid.
Number one.
And most importantly, the Immune Deficiency Foundation.
Number two. We want to bet over $100,000.
$500,000 from VShojo. I really wish that I could tell you more, but right now, I have been advised to wait for legal proceedings. As of right now,
she said it twice. So guys, that was not a mistake. She literally said it twice in a specific language. I've been advised to wait for legal proceedings.
Smart.
That's a very specific thing she said, and that means something.
I am an independent VTuber. I am at a loss of what to do right now. I'm kind of processing everything. I'm very sad and very confused. Once again, I want to apologize to the Immune Deficiency Foundation and to my community who has shown so much support to me. I also wanted to say that all the ad money made from this video will go towards the Immune Deficiency Foundation. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. Like I said, I really haven't had much time to process this. But below the video in the description box is a link to a donation fund for the Immune Deficiency Foundation.
I'm gonna put the link in all my videos that I cover on the Ironmouse saga, so I will have that down in the description below. I believe it's a direct link. I'm gonna double check to make sure, but it's going to be whatever the link that she has on her main video, so I'll make sure it's the exact copy.
And thankfully, any donations made through Tiltify go directly to the charity.
So that's why we're using that link. So I'm going to put that one there because it kind of ends with the charity stuff. But that's Ironmouse, and that's why I have the Tiltify one in my pinned, because that's the one she endorses, and that goes direct to the charity. So that's why that is indeed there. Okay, so you've got the background. You guys understand what went down with Ironmouse. We've also got 9,000 people in here. Once again, welcome. Get situated. We
have 9,000. Oh yeah, this guy's spot. You have 9,000 live viewers. Holy fuck! I mean, yeah, it's a big thing that's going on right now, but jeez.
Just watch the Ironmouse video if you're just checking in. Also, everybody with super chat, just so you know, they're going to wait till the end, and I will get every single question at the end. Okay, so let's get back to this PP, shall we? So we had the Ironmouse explanation, and then the other killer piece in this part is absolutely essential. It's
okay, so I haven't seen this video at all. Okay, so I did a little bit of digging into VShojo as a company. They have their Japanese branch, which someone mentioned in the comments. What's interesting about that one is they're like, I think what was going on with that one is even though they had a Japanese branch, all the money was funneling between the two companies, or two branches, as a single company. So even if money was coming in through their Japanese branch, it was still filtered or counted as the same income from the San Francisco branch. Effectively, think of it as two different HR buildings, right? They're still the same company within two different countries. So, for instance, even if Japan's version was bringing in, say, 1.9 million a year, and the total version was 2.9 million a year, that means the San Francisco one was only bringing in 1 million a year. So it's not that they were potentially bringing in $5 million a year or $4 million a year. They were still like a single entity bringing in the same revenue amount, which, by the way, if you're splitting it between multiple countries, is going to have different tax laws in place. So, and the question is the 2.9 million there like actual revenue, like after taxes, or is that getting taxed even further down? So that's where I'm like, they had to be burning through that initial $11 million capital. They had to be burning through that like fucking crazy, hoping to get, basically to a point where they had enough money within that couple year block to offset that. And I don't think they succeeded. I think that's where they're really fucked.
Essential reading. Now, I will confess that I am not fully fluent in Japanese, but I was relying on some translations, which were pretty reliable, and some folks that speak Japanese that were kind of translating it as it goes, as well as Kson kind of recapping everything and confirming the major facts I'm going to state today. So while there may be some things that slip through the cracks in terms of what the CEO said that I may not have picked up on, the general strokes make it very, very clear what's going on here. So what was said during this particular exchange? Well, some of the most pertinent information, there's really three things. First of all, this is VShojo's Japanese CEO, but I think that is a misleading title, and you need to be.
Well, yeah, because they're still the main CEO in the US, but because it's likely that they're just two branches of the same company, this CEO in Japan is more of a figurehead title, and they're just an employee, which means you can't necessarily like throw them under the bus for it, right? It really depends on how it's fully structured, but from what I could tell is the way it was structured is they're just an employee of sorts with the title of CEO because it's another country, but not an actual CEO.
Very careful about this. That is a misleading title, and you need to be very careful about this. It is very misleading. There is not a separate legal entity for Japan. There is one entity. It's American, and that's it. The division between Japanese branch and, let's say, American branch is as different as the difference between the HR department and the sales department. It's all an internal distinction.
That's what I thought.
It does not matter legally, and it will not protect the company as a whole. They can't sever off the Japanese version, say, oh, well, Japan's going to stay alive and not have any liability. No, they can't do that. Now, I will say one thing, listening to this, I don't think this particular guy is the villain here. He is not high enough in the VShojo hierarchy to deal with the overall machinations and operations of the company. We're going to talk about the CEO and also the COO.
He likely is just basically another like executive type employee where he's just he's a manager effectively, right? They just gave him the title of CEO, so it sounds cooler potentially, but from a technical standpoint, he probably doesn't have the typical CEO abilities, I guess we'll say.
Chief Operations Officer. Those guys are way more culpable here for the overall operations of the company. I don't think this guy is necessarily the number one villain here.
I guess we'll
see. He had a job to do. He kind of really, in most senses, instead of thinking like Japanese CEO, I would think of him like the Japanese manager.
Yeah.
Like he managed the Japanese
That's what I was
talent,
going with.
like Japanese branch manager, people are saying. But it's not even an official branch. It's just an internal division. Wendy's branch manager. Come on. But once again, I don't think he's like the evil, Dr. Evil here of this. I think that he views himself as put in a bad position because think about this, guys. If you work for a failed corporation, that's on your resume forever. Imagine if you worked at Kson or some sort of other corporation.
Okay, that can be true. It really depends on how well known you are within the industry and what kind of background check they end up doing to you. That's kind of like 50-50. And besides, if he switches into independent contracting, you can just kind of change your name.
That went down, the Lehman Brothers, etc. Right?
Wait,
what did you bring? Some sort of other corporation that went down, the Lehman Brothers, etc.
Lehman Brothers,
right?
Yeah, there you go.
That's on your record forever. And now he's going to be on the record as in a failing VTubing corporation that went down due to some dark stuff. The charity stuff, the charity embezzlement, and the unpaid wages.
And if he's a relatively new employee,
that's
he's just
not looking good for him. I don't think he's particularly evil, but Kson did put him to the fire and did hold his feet to the fire on this. And I think she did a admirable job of it. And also, mind you, she can only speak about herself. She can't speak about other people, and she doesn't want to dig in other people's business, which is appropriate. So she was being very careful to make sure the questions were related to herself. But she was clever in that she asked questions that can pertain to the U.S. branch as well, which is very clear. So what we learned from this that was very relevant, and I'm going to summarize it. We're not going to play the whole thing. But what we learned from this is that the JP branch was allegedly making money, but the U.S.
So we could check out the Kson video on my end as well. And I'll ask you guys in the comments to maybe come up. I don't know who Kson is. So it could be more context here, but we might just get enough context from this video alone. So if you want, we can definitely watch the whole video. We could absolutely go through it, but it's going to be a lot of the repeat stuff, I think, that we won't get. We'll get more out of this video overall. And then maybe I'll wait a week or two till we get more stuff coming in. Or maybe there's other channels we can watch as well. I haven't decided yet on whether or not we're going to do the Kson video. But yeah, let's keep going.
Branch wasn't. And as a whole, the company was hemorrhaging money. They were losing money. And another thing that came up, and this is very important, is that they were paying the staff and not the talent.
Okay, well that's primarily because they're required by law to pay the staff. There's no way around that. You have to pay your staff before anything else. Then you can pay the talent. Now that's not morally accurate necessarily, but that's from a legal standpoint. Employees have a much better, uh, much better legal status effectively than us as some subcontractors. So the moment you're not getting paid though as a subcontractor is the moment you're like, fuck, I need to jump ship now.
The staff and not the talent. And out of this, we got the best quote that I think this is going to be a quote going down in VTuber history. Talent first, my ass. I love Kson. I got a kind of crush on Kson. But this is possibly the best quote because it not just talks about a feeling, it talks about the reality, the legal reality.
Yep.
Because the legal reality is that they were paying staff and not the actual talent. And there's a reason for that. That's because
independent contractor
staff needed to be paid, or labor law, which is very clear because they're actual employees, would have been triggered and they would have been immediately punished, whether it's in Japan or America, anywhere in the world. The staff are clear employees. They need to be paid first. However, independent contractors can be screwed. And even in the...
No shit. No fucking shit. Gosh damn it. The amount of bullshit nonsense you deal with as an independent contractor is insane. Yeah, you get to keep your... I don't have to follow, I don't know, what's something that we could do? A schedule. I don't have to do a 9 to 5 schedule. As long as I get my shit done within the contract period time, it's all good. But... But even if I get everything done, there's that chance I'm not going to get fucking paid, even if it's all done. And then it relies on me to fucking sue them, which I may not have the funds to do.
First. However, independent contractors can be screwed. And even in the case where they declare for bankruptcy, which they're probably going towards, we're going to talk about that.
They may not get paid anyway.
Independent contractors can be completely shafted.
Yep.
Of all of their money. And what is amazing about this is that she was not paid since September of 2022.
Okay, I'm gonna guess 2022. Oh, geez, that's not good. That's even worse. I figured they were running low on money, maybe mid 2023, from what I could tell initially. But if she wasn't being paid in 2022, they burned through that initial $10 million plus investment way quicker than they ever should have. Because they should have been having money coming in on top of it. So they effectively burned through upwards of $20 million, maybe a little less, $18 million in 2 years for a small company. What the fuck were they doing? So yeah, that's not great.
How many of you guys? Let me tell you right now. I would be destitute if I was not paid and living at the same quality of life as whatever, and I didn't reduce my quality of life. Like if I was not paid for an entire year, that would not be good. That would not be good for me, right? To not get paid.
Right, like same. Well, okay. I don't know if I wouldn't be having a good time. I probably personally have just barely enough savings to offset certain things, but I would be switching to ramen diets within like 4 months, right? And it'd be top ramen diet versus the being able to eat the occasional burger every once in a while. But yeah, I mean the fact is that I'm surprised she wasn't jumping ship before. She should have jumped ship after the first month of not being paid, but for some reason she didn't. I guess giving the benefit of the doubt to the company that you kind of maybe potentially got started. I don't know if this is her first VTuber agency, so that's where I come up with the if you're new to contract work or subcontracting, you make a lot of really stupid excuses for your companies that you're working for that you shouldn't be.
Not paid for an entire year. That would not be good. That would not be good for me, right? To not get paid for an entire year. I don't know how many of you can survive that way. God bless Kson, and that she was able sorry, not 2022. I'm sorry, 2024. Misspoke.
Okay, that makes way more sense. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, so I mean, that's still almost a year in her case, right? Potential, maybe a year. Yeah, that's a big misspoke right there. Okay, so let's going back. So they probably still had money up until at least late 2023 then. Still though, they were probably burning through that initial capital, and don't forget they probably had to pay it back. So that's where I'm like, what's going on here? How bad is it really?
Misspoke. Let's play.
No. Wait.
2024. I misspoke. I'm not perfect, guys. Listen, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. 2024. She wasn't paid since 2024. So September of 2024, she wasn't paid. Enough money to buy her a Ferrari, right?
That's a lot.
So clearly Kson has some level, somebody put in the chat, of FU money. But that's all well and good. Not every talent has that level of money or has that level of resources.
Most independent contractors don't.
Put that on them is insane. Now, we don't know for how long Ironmouse has not been paid.
That's true.
Maybe she hasn't been paid since September either. Who knows? We don't know that right now. We have no idea how long Ironmouse has not been paid. She hasn't said that specifically.
She also has more medical stuff potentially, which may require more constant flows of money. That could just be in general, right? Like, for instance, I could probably survive, if barely, on $2,000 a month, right? She may not physically be able to survive on, $2,000 a month just due to potential medical things. Whereas, I don't necessarily have those. Yeah, I got my eye thing, but that's not really a constant potential issue. It's just more of, I need an eye patch every couple of weeks that I might need to replace, which is like $3. Special glasses, $40, things like that. I don't need like crazy expensive shit to survive, basically. So that's the thing. And, you may not be able to survive on that. And most independent contractors, at least not, we won't say most. We'll say new independent contractors or people who just don't know how to save correctly are going to have much bigger problems. At least short term and definitely long term, and may not be able to survive without doing other work. So that's the thing.
Date, right? So yeah, 2024. That's insane. Full year. Fumble mindset. It happens, guys. I'm not perfect. This is alive. This is the reason why it's alive. You guys like this, the scuff sometimes. It happens. Almost 10,000 people in the chat, by the way. So make sure to hit the like. All right.
Damn.
Let's talk about VShojo. Let's get into the facts. So there's a lot of important facts here.
Okay, so they were founded in 2020. They and I'm not sure if he's going to pull it up, but they got an initial investment of around $11 million from a capital venture company. I think it started with an A. I forgot the exact name. It's like Allen something or something like that. Big thing is they're a private company, so that's a little bit harder to find a bunch of information on. They have 27 or 29 employees, one of the two. And then they have a annual more or less income of around $2.9 million, give or take, assuming they're not lying about a bunch of shit. But with that many employees, that's a huge problem. That they need to have at least triple the income to support that, at least in my opinion. Especially since they're headquartered in San Francisco and apparently have another branch in Japan. So they're paid for multiple locations potentially, depending on how that works. Now, let's see if he has some extra information here that I didn't know about.
First of all, VShojo is a private corporation, so we do not have their public filings. That's very important because we would have certain disclosures and financial reports that we'd be able to audit live if they were a public corporation. And I do have a little bit of sadness that they're not as public like Niji Sanji or like Cover Corporation.
That's true.
Whereas
Niji
we could
Sanji
look
had a
at their
bunch of crazy
financials and
shit.
see how they reported things and see where that $500,000 went, where that was on the balance sheet.
That would be interesting to see.
That doesn't mean they don't have to account for it. They've clearly filed taxes. They've clearly filed other reports. They've clearly filed something, but we don't have access to it. Now, as part of an investigation, we will eventually figure this out. And particularly if there's a lawsuit and this stuff becomes public.
Oh, yeah, then it becomes all public in the U.S., especially in California. And I guess there is one downside is they could file a lot of this stuff under seal, which they might do. And it kind of depends on if you have to be very specific with under seal stuff too. Like, so it's 50-50 on what we would get out of that.
Public, as it would within a lawsuit, particularly in California, that would be information we would eventually get and be very, very interesting to see
California
where that money
has, like,
actually went.
Super
We don't
high
have that right
levels for
another important
requirements
fact
for
here,
that.
and this is very important, is they were founded in 2020. And one thing you guys need to understand about
end of
2020 is that was a era in which two things were very true. Number one,
low interest rates and low interest rates on like loans, right? And then they were just giving out money like fucking candy because of the pandemic, and everyone was at home, so they're perfect time for this company to start as an internet only company. Everyone is at home and all over the internet. So yeah, that's a big one, right?
is that was a era in which two things were very true. Number one, companies could borrow money at extremely low interest
it was
rates.
crazy.
So they were borrowing money. And I know this because, number one, I was representing corporations, both when I was in private with a law firm and both when I was in-house. They were borrowing money at insanely low interest rates. They were so low that it made sense to borrow because inflation was more than the borrowing. So they would just say, oh, yeah, no, it's not going to matter. We're going to spend it now. We'll make it back later. And at this time, number two,
this is where that
the
11 million
speculation
came in.
was because of COVID that VTubing was going to go wild. The economic and financial projections for VTubing were completely unrealistic. Completely unrealistic.
I mean, it did go like through the roof, definitely, but what they were probably expecting was probably like multi-billion-dollar industry versus what actually happened.
They were based on people being inside 24/7 for, the future going on forever.
Which is stupid.
Didn't happen. That's not how things panned out. Eventually, the world went back to normal, and there was a drop-off in general in the VTubing industry. And that wasn't factored in. So I think a lot of people got in this, a lot of companies, particularly
they were assuming everyone was going to be able to stay in their work from home status and be able to do multiple things at the same time. And that didn't happen. A lot of companies lost their fucking shit after 6 months and started forcing people back into the office, even if they lost employees permanently. So that's what didn't happen here.
investors got in this for the money. Okay. I know people like to think, oh, it's about the talent. We love them. No,
it's never
investors
about that.
don't give money and corporations don't invest in things that aren't going to make them money. I'm sorry. Even the best of corporations is trying to make money.
That's the whole point of a company. The whole point of a company is, can you make money, as much money as possible for as little as possible? That's the whole point of any sort of company. Do as much as you can for as little as possible. Make as much profit as possible for as little as possible. And that's why you have companies that do all their shit overseas, regardless of tariffs, because it's still generally cheaper than manufacturing in the U.S. regardless. So, and that's normal for everywhere, though.
They thought they were going to make money during a specific period of time, and they were wrong about their projections.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not large enough to be deeply capitalized. They're not publicly funded, right? They're not publicly traded, so they don't have the same access to capital to recover. Beyond that, we're going to talk about this. I think these three people, Justin, the gun run Ignacio, the CEO, Philip Fortunat, the CTO, maybe not, technical side, maybe not as much.
Probably getting
but
paid
certainly
too much.
Daniel Sanders, the COO, he's actually a lawyer. These guys, I think Justin and Daniel are definitely in the hot seat for culpability here.
For that charity
because
thing,
obviously
right?
Justin's the CEO. Obviously he's in charge of everything there. And the COO is in charge of operations. So certainly these two people knew about that. If I was going to depose anybody, Mr. Ignacio and Mr. Sanders would be the first people I'd be deposing in this. These two people right here. And the last thing with the arrows, and the thing that's big, the thing you need to understand is there is headquarters in San Francisco, California. So that is massive. This means that all claims would seemingly be valid in California.
Which
that
is
means
crazy
the analysis
for them.
I'm going to do today is based on
There's a reason a lot of headquarters move out of California and move to literally any other state. The employee labor laws are crazy in favor of employees, which is good, but they're also in favor of independent contractors a lot of times.
applying American law and California law. Now, I'm not a California lawyer. I did a lot of research for this. I talked to my friends that are California lawyers, et cetera, on this. But California law in general, and having dealt with it directly, is one of the strictest in the world for employee protections, consumer protections, et cetera, regulatory protections. I can have my complaints with that, and I certainly do in certain contexts with some of the regulation in
Not
California.
in this case, though.
However, this is one situation where California law actually is a W for the talent and for the VShojo, the former VShojo talent, because they're going to go into one of the most anti-corporate jurisdictions in all of America.
And that's
why
the
VShojo is absolutely screwed here, right? This is a complete factor that is against them, 100%. And I have seen situations with independent contractors where they have a contract that says they're an independent contractor. And in California, the regulators, the people in the government that look at this stuff, they look at those contracts, say, yeah, no, we're going to throw that out. They're an employee. I've seen that happen. So
yeah,
if
that's why Uber got basically fucking screwed in California, because they're like, and even then, Uber still has lots of crazy leeway and shit like that. But there are plenty of companies that do independent contractor work where I've actually been classified and then reclassified again at a later date as an employee, even if I hadn't worked for that company for 6 months. I get like a notice in the mail from state of California or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, okay. I guess that. So how do I do my taxes then? So I end up getting like an actual like tax form. Was that W-9 effectively versus the independent contractor one, which is there's a bunch of different ones. So it kind of depends on what you're doing. So anyway,
that can happen. It can happen for these girls. No guarantee, but it's possible. And that is huge. That's massive factor. By the way, I think earlier somebody, well, let's see, what was it? People mentioning there's no CFO. So I looked for org chart and I cannot find their.
I couldn't find an org chart for them as well. I found all I found was the amount of employees and the initial investment.
CFO. So my assumption is the COO, which is the Chief of Operations Officer. He has that role. Maybe there is a CFO under him, but I'm going to assume that he's the one that's dealing with the financial side. That's an assumption by now. I might be wrong.
You might have a team underneath him, kind of like part of a. It could be just like a team of people, like 2 or 3, because they do have like 30 employees. So that could. My guess is he at least has an assistant of some kind. They just may not have the title.
But I have not found an org chart that has a CFO. Somebody said the CFO quit, whatever. I don't know. I have no idea. So for now, I'm going with that guy, for that dude. That's my assumption. Okay, let's talk about the VShojo contract. I have read a VShojo contract.
Okay, now, we're going to take a slight break. I'm going to have a little like note where you can just skip ahead. I need to go get another drink. Overall, I'm having a lot of fun with this video because it's definitely more in depth on what actually is likely happening from a legal standpoint. I'm also not directly part of the VTuber sphere, so this makes it more interesting. But yeah, you can just skip ahead to the next point. I'm probably not going to edit it out. Yeah, it's going to be my empty chair. However, unlike other people, I'm not going to play the video. You can just stare at his face if you want. But I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Okay, we are back, and give me a second. I want to make a note so I know where to edit this. So around 120 to 125-ish. Okay, so obviously you may want to just skip ahead. All right, let's take a look at this.
It is none of the current talents. It's a previous talent. In fact, it's a talent that has been gone for a while, right? So I'm not going to, and I don't want to say a name or whatever else. I've read a VShojo contract. I have it. I'm not going to show it because it's irrelevant. Also, it might inadvertently dox the person who it is, and I'm not into giving.
There's also the fact that it's probably out of date, right? So it's an older contract, definitely not active anymore, likely out of date in certain ways, but certain things are probably correct, like, for instance, certain types of NDAs. So yeah, it does contain an NDA. I've signed tons of NDAs. A lot of them are a lot of the same things, but a lot of them are say crazy shit that isn't enforceable. But a lot of people sign them and don't realize that they can't be enforced. So there is that.
Kind of show it because it's irrelevant. Also, it might inadvertently dox the person who it is, and I'm not into giving away information or in any way harming the talent.
I don't want to dox people.
Take any action that's
not
approved by the talent that would send me a contract or whatever else. I've seen all the corporations' contracts. I've seen Hololive. I've seen Nijisanji. Obviously, I showed you guys Nijisanji, Vactor, VNU, all those contracts. Their contract, I will say, it's more permissive than like an Nijisanji or Hololive. However, it has...
Okay, part of that's, though, due to the fact that even though it's more permissive, it's the difference between a Japanese company potentially and an American company in a lot of ways. Certain things are just going to be more permissive just because it's in America. But there's also going to be certain weird things in there that are going to be a bit different too, which might be more restrictive in certain ways, right?
Has certain provisions that are problematic for them. And the things that are problematic are the NDA and confidentiality provisions, which they do have in there. And then they have an attempt to frame them as independent contractors. Now, I will say this, of all the corporations, VShojo has the strongest argument that they're independent contractors. However, I don't think that completely kills the argument that they're employees. I think
the question, though, is like the Japanese companies. Does Japan care whether or not their employees are independent contractors? So that's the thing. I don't know enough about Japanese law in any sort of form to where I'd be like, am I an employee? Because does Japan actually care if you're an employee or not? So that's the thing. Whereas I could totally see, VShojo, because they're in America, they kind of know more about how independent contractors work. But the problem is they're also in California, where California has a habit of just being like, nah, we don't give a shit. We could classify them as an independent contractor, but we're going to classify them as an employee anyway. So that's the thing. It's up to the interpretation of a random fucking judge.
There's a very good argument that they're more like part-time employees or kind of maybe even, I wouldn't say temporary, but I would say part-time employees.
Part-time employees are probably accurate.
There's an argument that could be made for that based on the still residual level of control and the payment structure between them.
That's where
I think there's a good argument. And I think the thing is, by going in and attacking and saying, we're going to frame ourselves, the talent, Ironmouse, and all the rest of them that are quitting, that are unpaid, like Kson. We're going to call ourselves workers. We're going to file with the labor board, with the labor commissioner, and make VShojo defend. Make VShojo come back and rebut you. Put them on the defensive. You always want to, in this scenario, be on the attack and make them defend, not the other way around. So in that case,
yeah, I mean, if you're getting attacked by your former company, yeah, it's not great. It's because that means they're willing to put potentially way more money into a basically the prosecutor side. Effectively, they're going to put as much money into bash you into the ground as quickly as possible. Whereas if they're defending, they might actually try to slow the process down. Now the question is, they might not even be able to have. They might not have enough money to afford lawyers at this point, which could be an interesting turn.
Put them in the hot seat, put them in the pinch, put them in the position where they've got to come up with the money. I think that's a reasonable argument. And this is one of the reasons why I've been arguing since Nijisanji on why, if it's possible, you need to be framed as an employee, if you're being under this level of control, and also if you're worried about payment. Because without being an employee, they can argue that labor law doesn't apply to you, and they can shaft you out of your payments. And the only way you can remedy that is by suing them. But as a creator, do you want to sue your employer?
And do you have enough money to do so? Because if they're holding all your payments, you may not have the money to do so. And that's where a lot of subcontractors get fucked. And this could be in any industry too.
No, right? No. So it puts them in a weird position. It takes the power away from them.
You also, if you're a VTuber and you're suing let's say you're suing and you don't make enough money, right? And you win. You get your $20,000 that you're owed, right? But the problem is, let's say you do need to join another agency. You're not big enough to where you can't go 100% independent. You need to join another agency for whatever reason, right? No one's going to hire you ever. You blacklist your own self from that. And that could be for any other, subcontract. If you have a habit of suing places that you've worked for previously, you effectively blacklist yourself within the industry in that location, which is why a lot of people just don't fucking do it. They're like, well, I'll just take the loss and I'll never work for that company again, but I won't say shit because I don't want to be blacklisted by, say, Google, right? Or whatever. Now, I've never had an issue with Google not paying, but, that's the thing. What are you willing to risk being blacklisted by, like, the equivalent of a company that big, right? Because that's like permanent, and then you can have to switch fields entirely, which you can do, but it's a whole bunch of stuff you got to relearn.
So I've been very much against this framing for a while. Now I know that a lot of corpos disagree with this. I know a lot of corpos will like fight me back on this. I had a conversation with the former CEO, one former CEO about this. And look, I understand why they do it, but at the end of the day, it's not the best for talents. It really isn't. So let me continue here. Labor law. Let's talk about labor law. So contracts cannot prevent unpaid wage claims, or reporting of criminal activity.
That's
so
normal.
Anytime there is a wrongdoing at a workplace or a place of employment, you can report that. There's nothing stopping that in that contract that's going to stop them from saying they committed charity fraud.
Yeah, like you can't stop that. Absolutely. Any independent contractor, even if you're under any sort of NDA, can't be stopped by that. The only problem is, can you afford to tell anyone? That's the big thing that I am aware of. You may not just be able to afford to tell anyone, and you're like, well, but what's the moral thing to do? That's not going to put food on your table.
Or that they haven't paid me. That's perfectly permissible, and no NDA is going to stop that.
Yep.
No confidentiality is going to stop that. Furthermore, California law has specific provisions that say, hey, you can't do that. We'll talk about that in the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
But the process that's going on right now. So remember, she talked about the legal process. Remember that word, the magic words I talked about? Here's what's happening right now, most likely if she's doing a labor claim. If she's doing a labor claim, they're probably right now gathering documentation of witnesses. Maybe they've already done that. And then they report it to the labor commissioner, in this case, the California labor commissioner. Then it would go to mediation.
So if it goes to mediation, and so for instance, they may not actually make it into like an actual public suit of some kind. It could, for instance, if they could come up with the money, they might just pay everyone right off the bat and just be done with it and be like, all right, we paid everyone, we paid the charity, we paid everything, everything's good. All right. Yeah, we're still a shit company potentially, but we did finally pay everyone. That could be the way it goes if they could somehow come up with the money, or if they had the money the whole time and they're just assholes about it. I don't know. So that's a possibility. Sure, they are getting wrecked in public conscience effectively, but that may not matter long term. They could probably still attract more people to the company, even with this problem. Maybe.
In this case, the California labor commissioner. Then it would go to mediation. And then after mediation fails, usually there's a settlement here, but after that fails, there'd be a civil lawsuit.
If there's a civil lawsuit, that all becomes public. Unless it's filed under seal for some reason, which California, you have to have a reason to file it under seal. You can't just be like, I want to file it all under seal. Well, you have to have reasons for that. There are certain things you can still seal, like for instance names. A lot of your employees' names don't necessarily be out there, but you may not be able to file every part of the thing underneath seal. So we should be able to get access to a lot of their financial records and stuff if it becomes public, potentially. Like, yeah, no, I don't see a lot of things being allowed to be filed under seal entirely there.
Fails. Usually there's a settlement here, but after that fails, there'd be a civil lawsuit, which there's a 3-year statute of limitations. There's plenty of time. And all that counts is you start the process. So clearly she's already starting the process. She's already getting on this. So I'm not even worried about the statute of limitations or the limits being run out. What she may be waiting on is mediation. She may try to mediate with them and try to get some money back and maybe get the charity money. Right. Yep. I think maybe if she can get the charity money back and she realizes, hey, I'm not going to get all of my money back, she might be okay. Because Ironmouse seems pretty selfless in that sense. If she's willing to sacrifice her wages for that long, same with Kson, right? If they're willing to sacrifice their wages for a long period.
And that's where this just might end. If they can come up with the money to pay the charity at the very least, and maybe, 10 to 20% of what they actually owe the other two VTubers, they might just be like, all right, that's good enough. And then everyone just drops everything at that point. But we'll see. The other option is they don't have the money at all, and they're just going to be totally fucked. Because it would be one thing if they just didn't have the money to pay their talent, right? Because they just filed for bankruptcy, and then everyone loses, right? The company goes under, everyone goes under, and everyone gets basically nothing, right? But the company just ends and this doesn't happen again. But the problem is that $500,000 towards charity, that shit does not go away.
Of time, they're probably willing, right? If they're willing to sacrifice their wages for a long period of time, they're probably willing to settle for less than they're owed. They're probably owed a lot of money. They're probably owed, I would guess, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars based on their income levels. So
I could easily see 250,000 plus.
I think
maybe less.
They're waiting on the process. And I think if this process proceeds, I think you may hear more from them. But however, you can't silence the mouse or the other people. Laws prevent retaliation against employees reporting unlawful acts, stealing money from charity, not paying out the payments you're owed.
Okay, so yes, technically there are definitely laws against this, but the problem is, and this is just from personal experience, a lot of times, even if the law is on your side, you can't afford to care effectively. Like I probably could have sued some of my original first job type deals easily because of shit things that small companies were doing, right? I just couldn't afford to, and I wasn't going to because I didn't want to. Basically, I was new into the field. I didn't want to get blacklisted within the first 2 years of something, right? Regardless of whether or not you can or can't do it, a lot won't do it, and the companies know they won't do it because they know that they're basically above, not necessarily above the law, but they're like, well, okay, go ahead and do it. See if you get to work in this state anytime soon. And they can definitely put out rumors, which you will never be able to prove otherwise. So that's the thing.
Employees reporting unlawful acts, stealing money from charity, not paying out the payments you're owed. That's an unlawful act.
Yeah.
California also prevents NDAs from silencing employees. God bless Cali law. In 2022, there was an updated law, the Silence No More Act, that applies to workplace NDAs and when they don't apply, etc. I do think that for many reasons, the NDAs could be wiped out, but I think that specific California law is an argument that a clever lawyer could try to make to knock out that NDA. So I think that's possible as well.
Now, here's something interesting, though. Let's say your old company doesn't retaliate in any way, okay? You're like, okay, cool. Well, I won this lawsuit, right? But the other problem is if your name is attached to a bunch of lawsuits in the hiring process and the fact that you've actually attacked your prior company, even if it's a legitimate reason to do so, it's going to be that much harder to be hired by another company because they're not going to want to take the risk, even if they don't plan to screw you over. So that's the thing. You could be screwing yourself over and your own opportunities over, but you know that there's always that risk back and forth kind of a thing. So, and this isn't like work for shit companies. That's good for you. It's not, but it does limit you because you could a good company could just not hire you because they don't want to take the risk of you litigiously suing them for something that might be an accident down the road or might not be, but it just depends. They just won't want to take the risk on you, which is complicated.
There's also something called whistleblower protections. So that's very broad. Many states have whistleblower protections, not just California. So whistleblower is someone who will report something that should not be happening that's happening. That exists in California, as well as the last thing, and this is so important, I'm going to say it time and time again, you cannot stop the reporting of crime.
Correct.
There is no contract in the world that says, hey, if we do a crime, you can't tell anybody. No, that's not real. That's not a thing, especially not in America, right? Maybe in North Korea.
Oh, yeah, okay. I could see North Korea having that as a rule.
Not in America. You can't stop people from reporting a crime. If someone commits murder, you can't say, well, we have an NDA, so you can't tell about that murder. No. You're committing a crime related to the charity funds. That needs to be reported to the proper authorities and investigated properly.
I mean, ideally, though, you'd probably want to report it anonymously. Like, if you're going independent fully, though, then you can do whatever the fuck you want. It's just when you're relying on other companies, that's when you kind of have a problem. And I'm not talking about from a moral standpoint. From a moral standpoint, obviously, do all this shit. But from a, just a whether will a company bother even to attempt to hire me after the fact, that's 50-50. Because I've had definite issues where people have dealt with, small claims court where they sued someone within a company that I was working for that was screwing a bunch of people over. And then, they won, but then it was like infinitely harder for them to get any other contract work. And some people even switched careers entirely because they just couldn't, no companies would hire them, even if they were in the right. And that is bullshit, but it is kind of what it is. And there's no real way you can take a company to court for just not hiring you necessarily because they won't tell you why, because they don't have to necessarily tell you why. They could just be like, oh yeah, we had more candidates even if they didn't. So it's like almost impossible to prove certain things. That's where it's a little annoying.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the crimes now. Who are they likely to put bench on? This guy, the Gun Run Ignacio, Justin the Gun Run Ignacio, is definitely on the top of the list for people getting deposed, people that are going to be put in the hot seat, because certainly he had the power, he had the control, he had the ability to guide the general direction of the company, and he chose to take it in this direction. So a lot of this criminal stuff is going to come on him. So let's talk about the charity fund. Very interesting. Issues. There's three main things regarding the misallocation of charity funds. First, there's civil claims. A civil claim is non-criminal. Yep. That's something that can be brought by either the donors or by Mouse. Also,
that's just attempting to force either a refund or force a the actual donation, right? Now, if they don't have the money at all and they spent it, then that's where the federal crimes and state crimes come into play.
Federal crimes and state crimes. Let's talk about all these. So first, civil crimes. This is a question I got immediately. Can the donors sue? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Donors.
Anyone in America can sue anyone for any fucking reason. Will it go through? It's kind of random, but you can basically sue anyone for any reason.
Can sue. There's many different theories they can sue under. They could sue under misrepresentation. Yep. That is, they were represented that this money was going to go towards charity, and it indeed went into their pockets, their coffers. That's misrepresentation. There's breach of contract. So there's an implied contract, which also has fiduciary duties between yourself as the donor and the recipient to disperse those funds appropriately.
Right.
There's also fraudulent transfer. Because of the amount here and the amount that was allocated, that is a massive fraudulent transfer.
That's actually the biggest thing. That might actually screw them further than anything. And that would be potentially kind of like rolled into the criminal trials, like at the state levels, right? Now, it wouldn't be the same because this is still a civil suit, right? But it's the same reason that people sue charities, though, and win. It
was put somewhere else other than the charity, probably into VShojo's operating funds, based on everything the JP COO said, or sorry, CEO of the JP branch, aka the JP branch manager. What he said was, hey, we were making money, they weren't. Put 1 + 1 together equals 2. Equals they put that into the operating coffers to pay the staff, pay to whatever, keep the lights on, pay for the building, pay for somebody's yacht, whatever. I'm making a Riku reference from Niji Sanji there, but that money went somewhere else. That's a fraudulent transfer. And then Ironmouse can also bring a claim, obviously, because she was misrepresented, right? She was harmed by that. She thought that it was going to go somewhere and it didn't. So there's claims that are going to be brought all around. And I'm sure, by the way, that Ironmouse was also a donor to the fund. So
I didn't even think of that.
Come against him.
She could have donated 10,000 plus easy from her own stream stuff. And then that's like a double whammy in her case.
Civilly. Now let's talk about jail time, kids. Let's talk about federal crimes. I love federal crimes. This is federal level. So at the federal level, charity fraud is typically investigated by the FTC. Now, they will partner with the state attorney general. So obviously the California attorney general, which is the state in which they're headquartered, would be working together with the FTC on this. And it's $500,000. This is
not little tiny stuff. This is not like 500. This is not $10,000, which is still high, but kind of small when it comes to something like this from a company. $500,000 is something they're going to fucking look at.
The level that it gets federal attention. And particularly with the PR that's going to go in here. I know a lot of you guys, there's 10,000 people in the chat right now. People are going to contact the California Labor.
There are already a ton of news articles on this shit, and it's only been 24 hours. And these are like Sports Illustrated stuff is picking this stuff up. This is not... Tons of stuff is tons of companies and news sites are already picking this up. So this is going to be very interesting very quickly.
People are going to contact the FTC. People are going to be making phone calls about this. This is something that I think fans, people around on the internet are incensed about, justifiably.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think because of that,
charity fraud.
These people are going to know, and they're going to get
same shit when people were losing their fucking mind over the what was it? There was another charity fraud-esque like thing with the completionist, right? Now the cool thing is the completionist actually still had the money and they didn't spend it, and they did actually donate it. So small win for them at some point eventually. But I don't know about these guys if they even have the physical funds to do so. Maybe they can get enough ways to sell their shit as quickly as possible and come up with the $500,000 and just barely skip out on jail time.
on this. They're going to be like, what's going on here? Let's make some calls. And it's going to be a real uncomfortable moment in that VShojo office when they get a call from the federal government asking where's $500,000. That is a hell of an uncomfortable conversation with the federal government.
We spent it on
pizza
on the nature
parties. Of the
parties.
fraud. Once again, we don't know exactly where the money went, so this is speculation.
Yeah,
but I'm just going to give you
company.
a list of things. The first one is one they can get anybody on. They got Al Capone on this one. Wire fraud. Now, wire fraud is not just over the telephone; it's over the internet. So the interpretation of that legally is over the internet. They would have a slam dunk case on wire fraud if they misappropriated these funds.
Yeah, even like
that's
internally.
Pretty clear. Money laundering, false statements for lying, misrepresentation, and also violations of the FTC Act, the Federal Trade Commission Act. Any of these things is possible. Once again, depending on the facts, some things may be more likely than others, right? But certainly, I'm looking at wire fraud here.
The first one is most likely.
Yes, this is when you get the FBI open up. Real uncomfortable time for Ignacio. State law. Let's talk about that.
There's a lot of
California
crazy
Penal
state
Code
laws in California.
515, which is embezzlement.
So yeah, that's a big one. I mean, this could be a bunch of different things, especially if the CEOs and CFOs and CEO. Well, okay, the CTO. I don't know. It's the CEO, COO. Goddamn C random things. It really depends on if they were buying some crazy shit with that money or not.
Embezzlement. State crime, very clear. I mean, I don't know. It's the money was supposed to go one place and it didn't go there. Embezzlement, right? Breach of fiduciary duty. A fiduciary is somebody that holds your money.
This one is like the biggest one for them. They are totally fucked because regardless of what happens, they obviously didn't do anything remotely required for that money or any of their talents' income.
So if I'm your lawyer and you give me money to buy a property. I used to do real estate transfers, and my firm
Sure.
would do this. We would take the money from a corporation that was looking to buy land. We would hold that money, and then once the seller of the land met all of our terms,
Yeah, if
we
you
would
spent
disperse
this
the
money,
money to the
holy
seller,
fuck.
and then we get a deed for the land. And I did that hundreds of times. However, if my firm decided to blow that on, cocaine and strippers, right, that would be a breach of our fiduciary duty, because we no longer we weren't supposed to blow that money. We were supposed to give that money over for the transaction.
Yeah, it wasn't your money. You were holding it temporarily. It wasn't your money to use. That's the thing. It's like a fucking bank, right?
Right? So if they were supposed to give this over on behalf of Ironmouse, once again, she used that language. They were going to do this on my behalf. That is language that implies a fiduciary duty.
And the only reason she wanted it to be done like this was to, maintain anonymity, right? So that would be the main reason she'd be doing this versus having them. This is the whole reason she wanted to kind of deal with a company like this, is she could remain as anonymous as possible while still doing what she wanted, versus actually putting out certain information out there, which is trackable, which is why you have a lot of creators that have problems.
And they failed in that duty. Boom, breach of fiduciary duty. That's California law. That's state law, right? Allegedly. Misleading and deceptive fundraising practices, reporting, and so this is because they didn't give it and they were deceptive and misleading.
Right.
But beyond that, reporting and regulatory violations. So that's a good one. So charity donations have to be reported.
Yeah, and you have to report it in a very specific way, which is interesting. I mean, even if they chose to wait a year, they should have actually still had paperwork on what that was, that $500,000 was being allocated for. But the problem is, what about the reporting and stuff for why they weren't paying their talent?
How did they report this? How did they say this was supposed to go? Look into the books, look in the reporting. And the big one, the one at the end, the one that even the Joker is afraid of, is the tax man. The tax man. We're talking about the state and the federal, because tax can be at both levels, state and federal. So
California
both the
state's
tax
crazy.
man from the IRS and the state of California is going to be like, where did this money go? How did you allocate this? Did you properly pay for this? Like, what's going on with that?
And how much do you owe us as well?
You do not F with the tax man. And if they in any way misreported this, then they are in some hot water. Absolutely 100%. I mean, that's one there. You can't get around that. It's not possible. Okay, let's talk about the girls. And we're getting to the back end, so I'm going to be able to start answering these 102 super chats.
Holy shit.
I'm going to get through all of them, I promise. I'm not going to leave until I get through every single one of them. Okay, let's talk about the girls. So the girls here. First of all, I just want to say once again, please support them. Please do not pressure them to say more than they can say. Excuse me.
Yeah, because that could screw
The
up their
girls
case.
are not at fault, and they're only going to be able to say what they can say. And I know you're going to have a lot of questions for them, but they need to listen to their lawyers and what their lawyers say they can say and not say. And other channels can speculate more than they can. On my channel right now, I've speculated a lot, and a lot of what I've said is speculation, and it's based on allegations.
Yeah, it's just random things that we're saying that we think could happen, but none of what we're saying is backed by the fact that we're being sued or suing this company. We're just randomly spouting crazy shit that we think could be happening. Now, his is going to be from a more legal standpoint. Mine's just from I dealt with contracts that are similar in a lot of ways, but obviously still different standpoint. So that's the thing.
Now, it's reasonable speculation. It's educated speculation.
Yep.
However, they cannot do that. They are not at liberty to do that. So while you in the chat are putting together 1 + 1, they can't do that yet. So just understand
at least
However,
they can't talk
what
about
I do
it
think
anyway.
they can do, and this is a little, I hope they talk to their attorneys about this. All of them can try to file in California, whether or not they're a California resident. Ironmouse is not a California resident, but she's a Puerto Rican resident, which, can file in American courts.
Yeah, but because of how California works, you don't necessarily even have to be in the country. So there are ways around that, even if you're not even in the country. But if you can file in California, best place to do it.
But even beyond that, California labor law doesn't look into your residency status, etc.
Yeah,
you
they
can
don't
still
care.
file a claim, even as a non-resident of California, even as somebody who's just just worked for a California company.
Yep.
So I would look into that, because once they file, the non-retaliation provisions apply, as well as all the law that keeps them from silencing them or using NDAs to shut them up.
Yep.
So
in California,
file,
really
really
crazy when it comes to that
puts
shit.
VShojo on the defensive, and VShojo will be in real hot water because they'll be able to speak a lot more. So I think that's a good thing. And I think, by the way, all of them will be fine on their own. They'll be fine as indies. Some people have said, why don't they start their own corporation? I don't think they need to have.
Oh, then it's gonna the same thing would kind of potentially pop up in the future, right? You know, everyone they start their own VTuber thing, yada yada yada, and then they have to manage all this shit. And the same, like for instance, VShojo probably started off as something they were trying to do something that was different and better within the industry, and they fell into the same fucking trap. Well, that could happen with them again. So it's probably better just to be independent if you can.
Their own corporation. I don't think any of them need a corporation. They probably need a team, and they could share team members, right?
Yeah,
They could have
they
team
can have a
members
team,
that
but don't
support multiple girls. But I don't think they need a corpo necessarily. I don't think there's anything. A lot of people are obsessed with corpos. You don't need a corpo. You can have a team of people that help you. I have a team of people that help me. Shout out to my mods, Danielle, JP, my Clipper Eagle. I got other people help.
Who wants to be a mod on my channel? That doesn't make sense, but maybe we're like 50,000 subscribers or something. I still have time to comment on almost all your guys' responses.
I mean, behind the scenes too. That's a team, but we don't work for a corporation. It's just one body, right? So yeah, just putting that out there. And I think that the girls, if they're paid unpaid wages, I think they can make the argument that they're employees. All of them can make that argument. So Kson, with her Ferrari money, can go out there and say, hey, look, I'm owed these, I should be paid like an employee. I need to be paid out. Now, Here's the thing. I think VShojo's headed for bankruptcy.
That's what I was thinking from the beginning. I'm like, so there a lot of shit isn't making sense if they're not paying certain things, or if they're reneging on $500,000 worth of charity funds. I'm like, they have to be floating just barely above the line or so far in the red that they're totally fucked. And I'm like, there's no possible way they're just hoarding this money. I mean, unless crazy theory, maybe they've converted all their income from these guys into Bitcoin, and they're just hiding it away for some reason and willing to take the prison sentence for it for a few years later. That'd be insane. Not entirely unheard of, though.
I think VShojo's goal the entire time has been bankruptcy. VShojo has known they're bleeding money for a while. They haven't paid since 2024. They've known that. Their corporate strategy was to take their own profits as staff, as a CEO, with their shareholders, to take every cent they can extract from this business and liquidate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That totally does make sense, because you can throw all your independent contractors under the bus. You can't throw your employees under the bus until the last moment, right? And the big thing there is, how much did they owe on that loan that they had? So that $11 million loan. And the venture capitalist company that gave that loan, they're just going to write it off as a tax loss, right? And that's the big thing. They can just declare bankruptcy, and they are going to be totally fine from that. They can just restructure. They could restructure themselves potentially and still not end up ever paying their original talent. And they might still succeed in surviving somehow, but they can basically wipe everything clean almost instantly and still be totally fine. But at least their CEO got paid and all their other employees, right?
And they view the talent, and I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just telling you how corporations view people. They
disposable.
are the machine. They're the cog.
Mm-hmm.
They're just a cog to be traded off, to be discarded, to be sold off. They're not a thing that they feel a duty to in the same way that they do to themselves. And what I think they planned on the entire time is, because they're
It wasn't necessarily the entire time. It was once they realized that their current model wasn't profitable enough to sustain it. So there must have been a tipping point at some point when they're like, okay, we do not have the ability to earn enough to sustain the main corporate office. We just don't have enough. Within 2 years, we'll be completely bankrupt, right? And there's just no way. Even though we have some of the most popular VTubers on our fucking platform, our current business model is garbage and we won't be able to pay anyone. How are we going to do this? And then someone else brought up the idea. We're like, well, technically they're contractors, so we don't have to fucking pay them. We can just go bankrupt. But we got to keep paying ourselves for as long as possible. And you got to save that money.
Framed as independent contractors. In bankruptcy, there's two types of debt. There's secured debt and there's unsecured debt. Secured debt is something like a house that has a mortgage on it. A mortgage is secured by the house. If you don't pay your mortgage, they take your house. A car loan is secured by your car. If you don't pay your car loan, they're going to get your car eventually. What unsecured debt is, there's nothing tied to that. There's nothing they can take if you don't pay it. So in this case, when they didn't pay them, they couldn't, if they didn't pay Kson doesn't get to come in and take the furniture.
Right.
Kson doesn't get to come in and like repossess the office, right? It's unsecured. However, they're not employees. Employees are given a priority over all other unsecured debts. So that's why they paid the employees first. They paid the Japanese employees, and like the Japanese CEO branch manager said, he was paid.
Yep.
He was paid. He just admitted it. And to be honest, guys, I want to say something real quick. I do appreciate his honesty and his candor, that he was honest and said, I was paid. And because he could have lied. He could have lied and said he wasn't paid. But he told the truth. And
yeah, but that would have come out.
The truth was very instructive to the strategy. And now there is a potential hole in the strategy. Because if they go for bankruptcy, now while payments to independent contractors are unsecured, there is a special exception for unpaid commissions owed to independent contractors.
I wasn't aware of, I guess, yes. I've never been through a company that went through bankruptcy, so this never really applied to me. I have been screwed over by stuff, but I never actually followed through and followed suit or anything because it was not overall a good idea regardless. It was better to take the loss and just never work for that fucking company ever again. But I also never sat with a company and waited for $100,000 in missing payments. If I didn't get a payment, I just dropped them and just moved on.
So debt qualifies for priority status, meaning it gets paid before most other unsecured debts if during the 12 months before the bankruptcy, it was 75% of the contractor's earning from the debtor. So in other words, to put that back into English, because I know that's not very, English friendly there, the exception means if the majority of your money was coming from that company, they need to pay you first. You get a priority. That's a little ray of hope. I'm not saying that would make sure they're paid, because if they truly don't have any money, then they're probably...
Well, that's the thing, yeah. So, I mean, let's say they liquidate everything, right? They might still have basically nothing, because the question is, do they have to pay the capital investment first, even before that? Because if that's where all that money goes first, then after that, that's where it could be a problem.
Going to get out of the wages part, at least to a certain extent. And that sucks. It's horrible, but that's the reality of the situation. If they really truly have no money, right? Now, if they were misallocating money or misappropriating money, then maybe the wages or the payments that were to the CEO.
Because maybe you can forcibly sell the top 3 guys' houses and whatnot and try, or now if they're all renting, that's not a problem. But maybe you can sell a bunch of their shit and get at least something back, right? But maybe not.
CFO, et cetera, are going to be garnished, or there's going to be some individual responsibility. That's all possible theoretically. We don't know the details, but they are definitely banking on getting away with not paying people. And that's reason why this is not just Ironmouse, it's Kson, it's probably a lot of the other talent too.
Like if it was just one of them, I'd be like, I'm not entirely sure what they're doing here. There might be something else going on in the background that the VTuber isn't telling us. But because it's happening to everyone, or a good chunk of them all at once, there's something else going on in the background.
Chat, I'm going to ask you guys chat this right now. Have any other talent other than Kson and Ironmouse? I think maybe one or two have mentioned they haven't been paid. but I'm sure that others are going to come out and say they haven't been paid, other than Kson and Ironmouse. I'm positive that others have not been paid. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Kuro and Mel. Okay. Yes. People are saying yes. Yeah. I think it's others too.
Yeah. That means there's something.
A Melody
big
left
going on
too. Okay. That's a big one. Giga. Okay. She said she wanted paid. Okay. Good. Okay. Well, the point of the matter is that anybody that was there, the independent contractors, probably weren't paid. And that was probably a strategy. That was intentional. They said, we're losing money. We're going to die in a year. We need to get.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I figured they knew exactly what the fuck was coming, and they figured it out. And this independent contractors are the first to be thrown under the bus because it's generally safer.
Get every red cent we can out of our investment. We need to pay back our investors, right? So that is what likely happened there. Okay. We have 117 questions right now. I'm going to answer each and every damn one of them. I'm going to read every single one of them. But I will start at the...
Okay, so this might be a point where you guys want to leave. I'll probably stick around and at least listen to quite a few questions. We'll see. I don't know entirely how long this video is going to go from this point, but this is where the main part of the video kind of ends. So let's take a look.
Top, and I will go in like priority of when I see like higher amounts to lower amounts, and I will get through every single one of them. Rentevia says, well, VShojo just shat the bed with them. Maybe they get stomped in court if it comes to that for their absolute vile behavior and treatment of Ironmouse and other VTubers. They would get destroyed in court. I think their chances in court are horrible for this.
I think their chances are trash as well. I mean, the fact is that they probably could have gotten away with it to a degree if they had actually paid the charity money and then just kind of thrown everyone else under the bus. But because there's charity money missing, they're on a different level of screwed.
Absolutely horrible for this. Mash out us to get your pitchforks and torches. Pitchforks and torches. Buy one, get one free. We have a sale on bricks and stones. Man, the situation is bad. This is worse. People ask, is this worse than Nijisanji? Yes. Yeah.
It's worse. It's worse because it's much easier to fucking screw them over in court. I've seen crazy shit happen with that company, Nijisanji, over the years, and a lot of crazy shit has come out from that company. But the problem is they're also like hidden behind Japanese law, which is totally different and has a lot more nuances in certain ways. Whereas California is just like one of those places where you're like, yeah, we can totally fuck this company over and legally and probably be in the right. And whereas a lot of other places you can be in the right and still be fucking screwed against the company. So that's where this is a lot different and a lot more interesting.
Yes. I'll just scroll to the bottom here. Mr. Perickson says, get the fat electrician to research VShojo. That'd be fun. I think there's a lot of research that's going to come out and a lot of data that's going to come out on VShojo because people are going to spill.
And like for now, it's a lot of stuff is hidden behind a bunch of stuff, right? People aren't really able to find anything because they're not a publicly traded company. There are certain places you can go and look up things, but we only have the surface level for the moment. And until the people in the company start spilling details, we're kind of all stuck here in the same kind of boat.
And people are going to talk, and information, I guarantee, will be leaked out. This is a situation in which
it's just going to take a bit of time. I don't think
anybody has a real pull to keep it super secret. And I think that VShojo cannot sue them all for,
VShojo probably doesn't have the money to sue them at this point. So they're relying on people. They're basically, the people are going to start talking the moment they start leaving the company as employees. The employees will start talking. The ones that aren't mentioned in the main core group of everything will start talking and start doing interviews the moment they start leaving the company due to non-payment. And then VShojo probably won't be able to sue them because they won't have the funds to pay their damn lawyers to even try. Because serving someone in California is like $3,000, and that's assuming the process server even finds them within 2 or 3 days of staking out their damn house. And you still have to pay for that shit solo.
Breach of NDA. Right? They don't have the funds for that. Patrick said, when I heard her video yesterday, it was hard to listen as she kept explaining what they did. To steal from the charity that saved her life and gaslight her is a new level of disgusting. I agree. And that's one reason why I hopped on this so aggressively.
That was crazy.
I typically take a little bit
Like when you're like solo, not paid as an independent contractor, there's, you know, a he said, she said kind of a like scenario, right? But when you basically take from a fucking charity that has, you know, we raised $500,000. This is $500,000 is being donated. It's on there on the main like channel of the video, wherever the hell it happened. You can see the base level, right? There's nothing you can do to change that. You donate that money. That's it. The fuck is wrong with this company?
Maybe a day or two to process it, but the level of nastiness of this brings this, in my words, as worse than Niji Sanji in terms of the scope. Kson just streamed a few minutes ago and he put, yes, I talked about that. I watched the whole thing. Watched everything. Puerto Rican says VShojo is the Elizabeth Holmes of VTubing. Oof. FaZe wins by doing nothing. Well, once again, I think the Fish Man said something very wise, and we can listen and learn from that. He said it's very difficult to learn to make a profitable VTubing corporation.
I don't know who FaZe is, but that does make sense. So here's the thing. So from what I could tell, a lot of VTubing companies go into the main thing of being like, hey, we don't take any percentage from our talent, right? So for instance, YouTube, right? YouTube takes like 45% of all ad revenue from its creators, which fine, whatever. I mean, they're hosting a ton of shit on their site. They're controlling the fact that they need basically petabytes of data, just storage material across the planet to hold all our videos and shit that like we're uploading on a constant basis, right? Massive server data costs across the planet. So yeah, they need to take a bunch of that ad revenue to pay for stuff. And a lot of these companies are like, yeah, we don't take any of our any ad revenue or any revenue that these guys generate, when they probably should be taking like 10%. It sounds like no, they shouldn't ever be taking that. Well, if they want to remain solvent and then an actual company, they should probably be taking a small percentage of the income from their talent, but also treat them as employees. You know, they're still going to get paid a shit ton of money, the talent, but that's kind of that's where a lot of these companies are fucking failing. They're like, yeah, we're not going to take, we're going to do other brand deals where we just take a percentage of your merchandise. Well, they should probably be taking something from like a lot of talent agencies for other talents, like pick a music industry or whatever. They do take a percentage of every single thing, but that's why they never go bankrupt, because they are taking a percentage permanently of all the stuff you ever put out permanently. And it doesn't have to be a high percentage. It could be a small one, but the fact that they're going in, we're like, yeah, we're not taking anything. Well, that's a horrible business model.
He said that, and I think the Fish Band knew. I think the Fish Band knew about the finances. He said that, and I think the Fish Band knew. I think the Fish Band knew about the finances of VShojo, and I think he knew they weren't doing well. And he's smart to keep his organization tight and small and expand at a thoughtful pace. I think that's the way to go.
So I don't know if I've told him, but my dad specifically was a consultant for helping small companies turn into bigger companies without overexpanding themselves. That's what he did for decades. So like he worked for, you know, companies like eBay and Gateway for a bit while it was still a company. Microsoft, the company that did Funny or Die. Anyway, but yeah, his goal, basically he was a consultant to make smaller companies into bigger companies without overexpanding themselves and going bankrupt in the process. And that's where VShojo seems to have failed. They expanded super fucking quickly and just did not have the funds. The initial investment that they had was not remotely enough, just based off location that they were in.
For building a corporation that's sustainable, because you want to make the numbers sustainable. Premiere 2 used the word repurposed. It's not repurposed. They misallocated. It wasn't given where it was. We have a fact here.
So repurpose is just like moving money into a different project, right? Misallocated means they weren't supposed to move that fucking money ever. Repurpose just means moving it and you're allowed to move it.
The charity did not get the money. That's a problem. However you want to frame that, that's a problem. Cold Acid said VShojo imploding before Niji was not on my bingo card. Neither was I. I did not see this coming. I got to be honest.
I think the let me go back a second. So Ninja Sanji has a better corporate. They have a better corporate model just for income, which means even with the shit publicity. Yeah, I can't use that word. Shit publicity that they're getting, they're still not going to implode in the same way that's happening here because VShojo just didn't have the income levels. But the problem is no one knew that they were having problems either, though. So this is all like relatively just exploding everywhere. The fact that they just don't have an income model that makes they're not even holding like break-even territory, whereas Ninja Sanji, even with their horrible bad publicity, they could probably hemorrhage money for the next 10 years and still be fine.
Imploding before Niji was not on my bingo card. Neither was I. I did not see this coming. I got to be honest. And maybe, by the way, because I have been, not paying attention to the quote unquote drama side, I focus on more the legal side of things. And I know there's been speculation about their fiscal solvency for a while and that they were losing money or not making money. I didn't see a firm confirmation of that until I heard the words on Kson stream and I heard what the JP branch manager was saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. You stay out of it.
That confirmed it for me, that they're in a bad financial spot. Sponge117 said the company is basically already folded. A lot of staff reported that they've been let go on their PL accounts. There we go. Kuro, among others, submitting leave.
Okay, so let me see here. They had 29 or 27 employees on the books until recently. They could be down to like 10 or 12 or less.
And they're departing. They're a rotten tree. And every talent wouldn't leave if they thought they were going to be all right.
Yep.
And it's not just because it's friends with Ironmouse. It's because they see something endemically wrong.
Or they weren't getting paid, which is the big thing.
Of VShojo. Quirk said, you single-handedly made my boring mechanic job more enjoyable for the next hour or two. Oh, thank you. And listen, man, every job is important. So don't, no matter what you do out there, like what you contribute to society and humanity is important. Don't forget that.
I don't know. There are exceptions to that rule.
The Big L1861 says, any idea of what time frame the other talents are potentially looking at if they want to leave, if the allegation is true? They should leave right away.
They should have left months ago.
Kson moved her date up. She said she was going to leave anyways at the end of the month, but she moved her date up. So I think they should just leave now. There's no reason, especially under...
They're not getting paid anyway. Why the fuck would they stay? Why would they even put money towards this shit anyway? They should have left the moment they were getting paid for like a week. Or you could give them a month maybe, but gee.
American law? VShojo, leave right now.
Fuck any company that does that shit to you.
Fun said, if things were not bad enough, Kson also announced her immediate resignation, leaving like 2 hours ago. Saw that. I wonder how empty the agency's pockets are. Not enough to hire a good lawyer. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't think they have enough.
VShojo stands out there.
They might be a public defender level at this point.
People are going to try to defend VShojo. How do you make money? Tell me how a corporation survives when their top products are gone.
That's the thing. Like the only thing that they could potentially still make money on is if they own the rights to merchandise through these guys. So for instance, they might own a lot of merchandise rights for Ironmouse or Kson for the next, I don't know, set amount of time, right? That'd be the one way they could make money potentially. Maybe. The problem is a lot of people are not going to want to buy from them knowing it's them. A lot of people, though, aren't going to pay fucking attention. So some people are going to be paying attention to this insane thing that's going on. But a lot of people may not care because they just don't care. They just want a product regardless. So they do probably still have some income in certain ways, but they're losing a fuck ton not having these guys there.
Coca-Cola Corporation can't sell regular Coke anymore. It's right. They're not going to get on like, I mean, I know people like Diet Coke, but like there's going to be some problems if they can't sell their premium products. And by the way, it'd be like losing Coke and Diet Coke.
Fun side note, apparently all Coca-Cola in America is going to be switching over to cane sugar. So that's going to be interesting.
Because you're losing a lot of different products. You're losing a lot of different talents, right? Not just one, you're losing a lot. It would be a big problem. Mark says also something to note. Nazuna has also talked about VShojo both while they're in 23 and now. She had a lot of issues with staff and no support. I'm not surprised. They probably just didn't have money.
Yeah.
Thanks for the super sticker. Echo One says, how scummy VShojo. Hope they get what's coming to them. I think they will in insolvency.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess the big problem here is let's let's say they just go into bankruptcy, right? Well, assuming they somehow get away with the not going to prison for charity fraud effectively, then they may not get what's actually coming to them. They might just go be like, we just failed, zeroed it out. They may not lose anything personally. I mean, VShojo will go under, but that's not necessarily going to hurt the, founders or anything. So that's going to be more interesting.
And insolvency. Jimmy says, as a fan of VTubing in general and of Mousy in particular, this just all sucks. I know. And the one silver lining here is because it's VShojo, they do, and I've read the contract, and Kson said this, they maintain their IP, they maintain their social media.
So that's actually the one good thing about VShojo. They don't own the rights to the VTubers themselves, which is crazy and good. Because that happens a lot with a lot of contracts, is you'll end up effectively selling your IP right to a company, and then if you want to leave, you have to start over with a whole different VTuber from scratch.
They're not going to go away
or
as
whatever.
a talent. So none of you are going. None of you. You're not going to lose Ironmouse. You're not going to lose Kson. You're not going to lose anybody else that you love. And that's the best thing. If that's one of your Oshis, Kson or Ironmouse or Henya or Michi Machivi, whatever it is, whoever it is, you're not losing them. And that's a bright side. If this was another corporation, you might lose them, at least in that capacity. And we all know what we're talking about. I know PLs are a taboo still amongst some people, but we all know what we're talking about. Like, that's a bright side of this. And the contracts are very clear about this. And there's no way that in the interpretation of the contract, and I've read the contract once again, that they can try to take their IP.
Well, okay, so this is still an older contract. Now, the upside is Kson has confirmed that her contract, at the very least, means that she still owns the IP, which is great. But I don't know about every single contract. Like Ironmouse probably still has that as well. But I wonder if some of the newer contracts are even more restrictive. We won't necessarily know, though.
I like the Spike Man says, belongs to the Mount Rushmore of VTubing, no doubt. She's not my Oshi, but she's a pioneer, and her story is why VTubing is huge. I absolutely agree. It's inspiring. Biffernet says, how can she not keep her anonymity when it goes to court? She cannot. So that's a very good point.
That's going to be a problem, especially which may be why she held off on so long for leaving. So that could be. That's not going to be great.
It's a very good super chat. That's the reason why I love the super chats. This is a problem. If this goes to court, she will lose her anonymity.
Yep, and it'll automatically everyone will have because it's going to pop up on something like Court Listener. It just will. And everyone will have her real name, etc., potentially her actual address, and that's not good. And that's the downside of taking anyone to court, especially when you're a big streamer or whatever. A lot of your private information is no longer fucking private.
And she will need a username. There's no exception in the law for VTubers. I'm sorry, I know that makes people mad, but once again on my channel, I'll tell you guys the facts. And it's just a fact. There's no VTuber exception in the law that says if you're a VTuber, you get to not say your name in court. It would mean a loss of her privacy. And that's very,
very big for her.
Dangerous.
Yep.
But the fact is, it's the company that put her in that position. Okay? It's the company that put her in a position.
Yeah, but the overall concept is it doesn't matter. The company may have put her in that position, but she's still potentially screwed because there's always going to be that one lunatic fucking fan that will try to stalk you.
Now, one thing I can put out here. If it's the criminal case, they don't necessarily need her. Oh. So they don't need her name in the criminal case. They could just use her
for the charity fraud. Yeah. But for her own personal, you know what? If she forgoes getting paid from them, she might not have to put her name out there. If she doesn't care about getting paid from them and she just wants the charity fraud fixed, then there is a chance she can still remain anonymous. So that's interesting.
Ironmouse. But if it's her own civil lawsuit and she is suing civilly herself, yes, she wouldn't use her name in her own lawsuit.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm sorry guys. That's the one thing I've just got to be honest with you. Once again, I'm completely transparent here. Even when things don't go the way I want, that's the way it is. Obviously that sucks. I think maybe there should be some way to be a little bit, get some anonymity for certain people in certain circumstances. I understand that. Different systems and countries handle this differently, but that's the way it is in America. That's the way it is in America. Let's see here. Jay Mayhem says, since VShojo doesn't own any of the IP and some of the streams are part owners, they get hit with damages. Is it possible the streamers' part ownership will get hit? No, that's not
that
going
doesn't
to
make sense, right?
be an issue. Well, except for the fact that, let me put it this way. Except for the fact that they wouldn't be getting paid out of what they might get from like a profit share, right? Obviously,
I guess it depends on if they're in a profit share. I don't think they are, though.
There's probably liability limitations. And certainly the talent is not going to be culpable for something which they are reporting. So a talent is not going to have to pay out their own wages that are unpaid.
I see what this question was asking. I totally misunderstood the question. Never mind. Ignore me on this one.
I'm trying to say. So good question there. That was some big PP energy. Guys, I did that all today. I woke up this morning and I started working on that PP. So PP's in the chat, okay? Because I work hard to give you guys the best information out.
Is that a legal mindset specific thing? Maybe I'm just stupid.
There and to do it as fast as possible. I added 5 slides after the Kson.
Oh, PowerPoint presentation? Okay, maybe that's it.
Thing. That's how much I love you guys. And I filmed the Fast Facts video, which will come out later. You guys just got to stay tuned and you'll get that one. HR Hacken says, how does holding money like this work in the US? Does it go into separate bank accounts and bookkeeping accounts? If you're a company doing the right thing, if you're doing the right thing, here's what you should do.
Okay, this is actually why I want to know. Because I'm guessing they put it all in the same fucking account and just put like on a notepad somewhere. Oh, we owe this, 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 and this, and this, and this. Versus just opening up separate accounts for people.
Give it directly to the charity.
Okay, yeah.
You don't even put yourself in that position.
Make
a direct link to the charity and don't hold the money. You shouldn't have to hold the money. That's the number one thing you should do. And that's why, by the way, YouTube.
Which is why I was like, why the fuck would they even have it go through them directly? But even then, even if they did want to do that just to keep her anonymity a little bit more secure, right? They could have sent it out within the same 10 minutes or just said to automatically send out.
YouTube doesn't allow creators to touch fundraising funds.
Smart.
You add the company.
Good job,
YouTube. If you do it on the official way.
I rarely say that.
Right? By the official YouTube giving, right? You select the charity and you never touch the money. When I did a veterans fundraiser, right? I never touched the money. The Veterans Association was the one that received all of it, right? I didn't never see that money, never hit my bank account. I never was tempted.
That's good, right? That should not be a thing. Because a lot of YouTubers would fall into that fucking trap because they get like $200,000 added to their account right away. And they'd be like, can I just send $190,000? No one will notice, right? Yeah, I'm glad that you don't get the money in your account. It just gets auto sent out. That's great. I mean, that's obvious, but that's great.
Did skim off the top, right? And the problem with a corporation, imagine the position of a corporation. When a corporation is in the red and they see this money and they say, oh, but next month we got this big event.
That's the thing. They're like, we'll make that money back. All right, one more little mini break. Oh, look, I have a pop filter now. Hopefully there's less heavy breathing in this video. All right. Let me make another time adjustment here. Okay. All right. So, obviously, there's going to be skip points all the way through this video. I don't understand. I have to use the bathroom because I drink like 3 of these in any video. That doesn't make sense at all. I need the caffeine, damn it. All right, we're going to go back a second because I forgot what was going on. Maybe if I press the right button.
And they see this money and they say, oh, but next month we got this big event and we'll make this money back.
Yeah, this is exactly what I thought they were fucking doing. I'm like, it's like it's like using some money. It's like a Ponzi scheme in a way. Using new money coming in to pay old things going out, right? But yeah, I mean, they should. That's the problem. It should never have gone through their accounts. They should have never been tempted, and I think that's what happened. They just got completely fucked when that happened.
We'll pay it then. It's too much temptation. It's way too much temptation.
Especially if they're on the verge of bankruptcy.
Now, if you're gonna hold it, separate bank account.
Yep.
Separate account, and just that would be better. But once again,
just
paying
don't hold
the money is the requirement.
Just don't fucking hold the money.
It doesn't matter if they put it in their slush fund if they paid it out, but they didn't pay it out. That's the problem. Stealing donations meant for a foundation that helps patients. That's a special place in hell for people like that. Anthony said, but VShojo.
When do companies care if they're ever going to be in hell? That doesn't make sense.
But VShojo is just an unfortunate corpo. They need their $500K right away. Real talk, and the real likelihood this is real. They need to be prosecuted. Yes. And I am assuming that it's real. I have no reason to believe that she would lie. Can they settle out of court now? Yes, they can settle.
So the easiest way they could settle out of court is they would pay the charity, figure out any way to come up with the income for that, pay the charity, potentially pay the VTubers any of the money that they're missing, right? And then go bankrupt and then not deal with the the corporate financer that basically gave them the initial loan would probably just write off as tax loss. So that would probably be what's going to happen if they settled out of court.
Well, any minute. They could turn around right now and do the right thing and give the money over.
Yep.
The CEO could sell his
everything
yacht or his Ferrari and go pay the money right now. And that's the right thing to do. And I think if they want to get out of the criminal side, they want to get out of the PR side, pay that money right now.
Yep.
They still could have issues. They still could get hit with.
But they could, in theory, survive barely.
Problems, even if they pay it right now, because they failed to pay it for so long.
True.
They still could be investigated. However, the right thing to do, VShojo, is to pay right now. Find some way to pay that damn charity.
Anyway.
And then you can, they want to fight over the wages, whatever, right? They're going to lose on that or whatever. There's going to be pushback on that.
I mean, like, for instance, with the completionist, at least they apparently had the money in the account and they just never spent it. They just kept holding on to it, right? Or even if they didn't have the money and they pushed the money into the account like within a month or something like that, they still got rid of the money at some point, actually made the fucking donation. But the question here is, do they even have it? Is there a way for them to sell enough stuff to get it? $500,000 is not easy to come up with, especially if you're hemorrhaging money and we're relying on a bankruptcy potentially.
But pay the charity. Pay the charity. For the love of God. I mean, I'm kind of worked up on that one. Like that part of it is just obvious to me. Sell a mansion, whatever. Patrick also says the VShojo JP CEO told Kson he doesn't expect VShojo to survive this. It's wild to me. Nichi Sanji. Yeah, no, they're not going to survive this. There's no way you're going to tell me they're going to come out of this. They're going to lose their top earners and they're going to survive this. How is that possible? And if you're a bank or any sort of lending institution,
you would do your due diligence and look into this shit and be like, no, you guys don't even have enough income to pay back your initial venture capitalists. There's no way we're going to give you any additional money. What collateral are you even offering to give us reason to do this?
When you go and you ask for a loan, so let's say VShojo goes and asks for a loan, they're going to ask, oh, what's your revenue? And you show them your liabilities and your revenue against your revenue, losing all of these revenue streams. There's no way they're going to get a loan for that. Drifting says, so they shot themselves in the foot. How far can a company cover themselves? I don't know. Now, what could happen, there is a possibility that someone could try to buy them out, but I don't know how much they're worth because, once again, they don't own the IP. And the only reason
That's a good point. I was like, yeah, you could get a buyout, but if they don't own any of the IPs, that's a problem. I mean, that's great for the for Ironmouse and Kson and all these other VTubers because they own their IPs, but that's not great for the company because that means they have no real anything that they own that would be worth buying, right?
why you would buy out a company like VShojo is because of the IP. But because they don't own the IP, there's nothing really of value to buy in VShojo. It's just the VShojo logo. And now the name is tarnished. Why would you buy out?
Which you can absolutely just make a fucking logo okay, they would be trying to sell the company, not necessarily the logo itself, but the reputation effectively, which is in the gutter.
VShojo. There's no reason for them to buy out VShojo. VShojo doesn't have any unique technology. They're not unique in any way in terms of implementation, right? There's no reason to buy out the brand. Mr. Bernoxum says we should get the guys of the Unsub podcast in this and watch VShojo more. I guarantee you the whole internet is going to get on this the next couple of days. Patrick says when VShojo files for bankruptcy.
I'm supposed to be doing a Magic the Noah video right now, and yet here I am.
See, does VShojo JP have to cover playing? Oh, well, it's gone. Hopefully they get prison time for everyone. JP is not a real thing. Forget about the JP thing. He's not the JP CEO. That's a title.
Right. That's just part of the same fucking company, same branch of. Well, it could be a different branch, but it's basically the same. It doesn't matter if the regular one files for bankruptcy, they both file for bankruptcy.
Right. That they gave him inside. They can call you the Emperor of the Universe. They can call you the Emperor
that'd
of
be
Mankind,
the best title
right?
ever inside of a company. I wish as a contractor I ever got a job where they called me the Emperor of the Universe as my fucking title. That would be. I want to write that into one of my fucking contracts if I ever. If I ever could. That'd be so stupid.
There's one real CEO. That's the American CEO. There's no legal separate entity for the JP branch. They just call them that because they call them that. It's sort of like VTubers call managers essentially their assistants,
It's like the Coca-Cola branch in New York versus the Coca-Cola branch in England versus the Coca-Cola branch in India. Whatever. They're all underneath the same initial branch location in America in this case.
A lot of times a VTuber has an assistant and they call him a manager. Whatever, it's an industry term, whatever. It doesn't actually reflect what they're doing or their position or their relative.
I want to get paid enough in these videos to have a manager. Or to be able to pay moderators. If I ever have a moderators, I want to be able to pay my moderators.
Power to the VTuber. So I think that's just a internal distinction. Jay Mayhem says Mouse also has contracts in Congress. It definitely doesn't help. No, and that means federal eyeballs. Jimmy the Hand 1553 says there seems to be an internal revolution to VShojo. Mel is out, Kson is pissed, and even the honors. No, Kson is out.
Pretty much. Well, okay, so so pretty much everyone in their right mind who are talents for this company have to leave. They would be insane unless they're still getting paid somehow.
Keson's not pissed. She's out. She's out. JJ said, I know Mal said they were going to donate one half the stream earnings for their subathon, but did VShojo actually say they were going to donate that money to the IDF? Does it matter? If it was an implicit understanding, which is what Ironmouse has said, there was an understanding.
Because this has happened before. The last time it was basically set up the same way as her first subathon and donation. Because it's basically set up the exact same way, the implicit understanding is that you're going to donate this just like you did the first time.
That they were going to donate that is a big deal.
There could have been a little bit of wiggle room on how this was understood if this was the first time, but it wasn't. It was the second time.
Yes. No question. Just want to support the stream. Thank you. Steve McKinney says, does Mousy see as an eggshell plaintiff any chance of NIED? No. I don't think it's going to be NIED. That's negligent infliction of emotional stress. That's a very good comment, and I appreciate your legal creativity. And if this was a law school exam, I would tell you good answer, but I don't think that's the strongest claim. If you're just going to try to throw spaghetti at the wall, then maybe, but I don't think that's the main one. Lead anime fan. I love it.
Jeez. Man, you get some good donations for his channel, $50. I'm like, I have a really good chance of making $50 in 1 week on this channel. If I'm actually recording a couple 2-hour videos a day. Which is fine. I mean, you guys are helping me cover groceries every once in a while, so that's always really nice.
A fellow weeb over here. Legal worthy opinions are usually more than a super donation. Thank you. Clearly, this is about mouse right now. What do you suggest for fixing anonymity? VTubers want anonymity. What protections can they hope to?
I mean, that's the thing. If you're gonna file a civil suit, that just goes out the fucking window. You don't have a fucking choice. You have to do it. That's why there's all this crazy random drama with other YouTubers suing each other. All of a sudden, all their stuff becomes public and they get doxxed.
Benefit from going forward. You know, I think if there was a provision whereby they could go by a pseudonym or a business name and that would be sufficient, right? And they
if maybe if you forced every YouTuber or content creator of any kind into effectively an LLC of sorts, then you could go by that. Then that could make more sense, but it would make a lot more things more complicated from a tax standpoint. But it still would be safer in a lot of ways. I don't know if it's possible though. It probably isn't.
You have a reasonable basis for maintaining your anonymity. I think that's fine. I think that would apply to content creators. I mean, I would appreciate.
Yeah, most content creators don't want to get fucking doxxed. That's the big thing. If you don't, that would be the biggest safety issue around, especially when it becomes this is all public shit.
Some anonymity as a content creator. In my personal life, there's a lot of people that try to dig and dox and hate and say crazy stuff about you.
That's everywhere.
Certainly Ironmouse has her share of haters and insane people that are after.
Especially when you use your real name out on the internet. As far as you guys know, my name is Jeff. It could be something else. Who knows?
For her as a public figure. And she also has, probably super fans or stalkers or, some sort of, parasocial toxicity that would be at risk if she gave out her name and location.
Yep.
And her family,
and that's true for everyone,
etc. So I think there do need to be protections for that. I would say it's difficult to do, and it would end up giving a lot more people anonymity, but I don't see
the biggest problem is it give a lot of people who are shit people anonymity that would abuse the system, which is probably why it'd be almost impossible to make that pass through. California might be able to do something similar, though. They'd be the one state, they'd be like, we're going to test it.
Problem with that, if they're operating as like a business, so like, Ironmouse Inc. is suing, and that's the name on there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of okay with that. Zero U, but that's a very good question, and I do think it needs to be fixed. Zero U says, are all VTuber agency like this? I'm just fine supporting Hololive.
Do we want to know how bad Hololive might be? We already know Ninja Sanji's got its own level, but damn.
No and yes. So are all corporations evil? No. However, are they
all corporations are still in it for the money, and that's their ultimate goal, as much money as possible.
Driven by profit?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Almost all. There's probably at least a couple of companies that aren't driven by profit, but they're nonprofits, right? Or they're just. There's going to be that few that might fit that category, but the majority are all going to be driven by fucking profit because that's normal.
Yes, they are. And at the end of the day, even your favorite corporations like Hololive, like Niji, whatever your phase, even
all profit.
Even the fish band wants to make some money right at the end of the day. Now, they all may have a different trade-off in terms of what they're willing to do and how they're willing to support talent and how much they're willing to take versus give, right? They all have that different balance they're striking. However,
it's all about profit, all about growth.
I would say this, watch their actions. I judge people and corporations by their actions. Are they?
They can still be all about profit, but still not be a shit company to all their employees and talents and things.
Supporting the talent in a way that you support. Are they giving the talent what you want to support? And ask yourself that question. As I say, my slogan is be your own judge. Be your own judge of the corporation. Be your own judge based on what you see and how that corporation moves. K19 VT said, can a company buy out the remaining contracts from the VTubers that can't leave?
Any VTuber at this point can just leave. That doesn't make sense. They're not like well, here's the thing. If they're not getting paid, they're just going to fucking leave.
I don't think so. They could try to buy out the corporation and then assume the
legal
the
responsibility of those
profit,
contracts.
but they'd also assume the liabilities. That's the problem. And no one's going to want the liabilities because
VShojo's not. They're too much of a risk right now. It's the exact opposite. There's no risk versus reward right here. It's risk, and risk.
liabilities of VShojo far outweigh the revenue of the remaining talent. Jake says for £10, would Ironmouse have to attend court personally? If so, would her medical need?
She probably wouldn't have to attend court personally necessarily, because of the way the internet works now. You can probably do it virtually almost anywhere. You can have your lawyer do it in most cases. You could probably do it virtually in most cases.
Considered, meaning she wouldn't have to attend court. Sorry, legal noob here. No, she could probably get away with not going to court personally.
That's what I'm thinking.
However, she would have to be at some point perhaps deposed. So they might have to set up a room for her to be questioned, and they could probably set it up so it's sanitary and safe, etc. But she would at some point would have to leave her room, right? That would have to happen if she goes to court. However, she wouldn't necessarily have to show up in court herself. There might be ability to be deposed or whatever. And there are special exemptions for people that might have a disability, for example. And that certainly is a cognizable disability, right? So if they could accommodate her for a deposition, and maybe they could do the deposition by Zoom, maybe they would do it by another way to do it, and maybe they'd be willing to accommodate for that. That might be perfectly permissible. But would she necessarily have to go to court? No. And certainly, look, guys, this is my whole thing on this. I don't think this is getting to the point where it goes to court. I think VShojo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know if it'll make it to court specifically, because even if it goes into like full bankruptcy, they might just declare bankruptcy in advance, and then it still wouldn't necessarily go to court unless the charity unless they're taken to court by the state or the federal government, right, for the charity stuff, right? Everything else, though, I don't know how it would easily go to court, because it's less likely Ironmouse specifically would want to go to court to keep her anonymity in place. She may want to lose $100,000, which sounds insane, but to remain anonymous is potentially a bigger thing, especially if you're an independent at this point.
Goes under, or they settle before court. This is something that you don't want this thing to, if they survive long enough for it to go to court. Remember, it can take a year, 2 years for it to go to court. Yeah. Understand, court processes take a long time.
That's a very long time.
A lawsuit can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to drag out.
Yep.
So I don't think VShojo's got that time. That's my prediction. Mama Akko said it makes you wonder if other companies have the same issue.
I agree with that prediction.
And other companies aren't paying their contractors. Oh, no, Mama, absolutely. Are you kidding me? It's not just VShojo. Don't think it's just VShojo. It's other companies as well. In fact, we know some companies that have done that. I've covered them.
I've been a part of companies that have done that shit. Let's go back this here.
Example. And that certainly is a cognizable disability, right? So if they could accommodate her for a deposition, and maybe they could do the deposition by Zoom, maybe they would do, that might be perfectly permissible. But would she necessarily have to go to court? No. And certainly, look, court. I think VShojo goes under, or they settle before court.
Right.
This is something that you don't want this thing to, if they survive long enough for it to go to court. Remember, it can take a year, 2 years for it to go to court. Understand, court processes take a long time. A very long time. A lawsuit can take 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sorry, I tried to jump back 10 seconds. I jumped back like 30
years to drag out.
My bad.
So I don't think VShojo's got that time. That's my prediction. Mama.
Okay. I wonder if other companies have had the same issues and other companies aren't paying. Yeah, no shit. That literally happens all the fucking time. I wanted to make sure that's what they said. I know they were probably talking about in response to like VTuber specifically, but subcontractors, this shit happens on a fucking weekly basis.
Akko said it makes you wonder if other companies have the same issues and other companies aren't paying their contractors. Oh, no, Mom, absolutely. Are you kidding me? It's not just VShojo. Don't think it's just VShojo. It's other companies as well. In fact, we know some companies that have done that. I've covered them, and that have also shafted the talent. And that is something that goes on and on again in the VTubing industry because of the fact they're independent contractors. And that's at the heart of a lot of this. Topkek 666 says, hey, I'm new to the channel. Well, welcome. I found it after watching Ethan versus Kson from Asman. I love your videos, love your channel.
That's that's an interesting lawsuit too.
Love everything
that will be very interesting on whether or not it changes reaction content or not. Although looking into it, doesn't look like it will in a lot of ways. They're being sued for very specific reasons. Although, based off of how California rolls with shit, Ethan even then might be in an uphill kind of battle just because of how California is. But I don't know. If it changes the industry, it changes the industry. What? It doesn't matter. The channels will change around it. That's all there is to it.
Stay healthy. Big love from Slovakia. Oh, I love Slovakia. Think of the 50 euros. I'll have to get down there again. I have some really good Slovakian friends that I go hiking with. Erdania says, how do the upcoming lawsuits in bankruptcy affect the employees, board, and shareholders? Well, the employees need to be paid.
Yep.
And that's something.
And the employees will be paid first, and then they'll just quit or be let go, right? That's just automatically that they don't have that as an issue. But the bigger problem is the contractors and talent may not ever get paid anything, and then the next thing that needs to be paid is going to be the what do you want to call it? The charity, right? And if anything's left over, they might pay the venture capitalist company first, and then they would pay the talent potentially. But we'll see.
That they would need to do. So if they're full-time employees, like
no
the
shareholder
CEO,
here,
they got to pay them out. They got to pay them out. They would argue about the independent contractors, but yeah, the shareholders are going to get shafted. The board, to the extent they have wages or whatever else, they might be paid, but they're also on the hook. Sizzling Scientist says, surely filing for bankruptcy doesn't give them the get out of jail free card. They're still held to pay for embezzlement and someone on the hook. Yes. So let's pull this up real quick. So bankruptcy is only protecting them from the wage part.
Right. They're not going to be protected from the charity stuff, but they are going to be protected in certain ways from paying out a lot of shit if possible.
Bankruptcy protects them from the wages.
They may not have to pay upwards of $1 million based off of wages, right? Depending on how much they actually fucking know. But the charity thing is a big one.
Not protect them from any of this. It does not protect them from the state law or the federal crimes or hell, even the civil claims. At a certain point, they might even be suing the CEO or the COO or whatever else to try to recover this because of their culpability.
And the question though is the CEO and all these people, do they own any property? Do they own anything that can be sold like cars and shit? Or are they just renting and they're also broke as fuck? So that's the other thing. If they're not broke and they've been like squirreling away money for the last year, then you might have a chance to like claw some of that money away from them, but it's going to be more complicated over time.
So it doesn't get them out of the charity stuff. It only gets them out of the wage side. Remember, there's two parts of this: unpaid wages and charity. They're separate.
Yep.
And they can be dealt with separately.
Yep. And the charity stuff is going to be dealt with first.
So that's the crazy part. And behind, welcome. Lambda Driven says, are there any deep pockets Ironmouse could go after for personal earnings if VShojo is insolvent? Would the VCs on the board be liable? I would go after the officers. It
just depends on if they even have enough money. So hopefully they have enough money in their that they've been saving from the last couple of years, and they could potentially pull the money from there. But what happens if they're also all broke?
Of the corporation, I would go after the CEO. I would go after the CFO. Now, I'm not saying that guarantees she would win, guys. I'm not saying that guarantees. I would just say, as a lawyer, you try everything, and that's a try.
That's also a reason why a lot of companies put their shit behind their companies, because you can't necessarily then sue the individual person because they're like, no, that's just part of the LLC. That's just part of the company that we had. You have to sue the company itself, and that gives a personal protection of assets a little bit different, I guess, level.
Man, this sucks. We need a binder of doom on VShojo like TFE did for BPS and their cover-ups. Thank you. CS said for 20, this is late, but if VShojo is waiting for next year, does that matter? Isn't it a donation on behalf of Mouse? Isn't it Ironmouse's donation to claim, not VShojo's? I don't think
that would work like that, because all her money goes through VShojo.
They have that excuse. They have to pay that out. They have to pay that out to the charity or to...
Yeah, so ignoring that fact, but there's no point in waiting. But the only thing that makes sense to me, they only waited because they needed the money for other expenses, and they're like, we can make it back within a month. No one's going to notice. And then they just never did.
Ironmouse to pay it. If they were going to argue, if their argument is this is her responsibility to send over, then they need to pay her.
Right.
So that's the end of the day. What
which would be then then you would owe her not necessarily 100,000, but like 600,000 plus for her to then pay the charity, right? And that doesn't sound right. That sounds stupid.
Goes on there. That's what Ember's video, VShojo's cooked. Yep. Tommy Eklund said, with all this going on, let's take a moment to appreciate Danielle and the other mods. Obviously, Andrew, too. Thank you. Thank you to Danielle, JP Ravenfire, my great mods for 10,000 people plus almost 11,000 at one point moderating. You guys are awesome. Costandic says 15 talents unpaid for a year without a word unlikely ain't an option that they manipulated the easy marks in Ironmouse, but they did pay others, essentially letting Ironmouse pay the talents earnings. I don't know how many people were unpaid.
Yeah, see, I couldn't find that either. I could find a couple, but I couldn't find like specifics in the background, and a bunch of people talking crazy shit in the background isn't going to make any sense here. Let's see here. Let me double check something. Okay, so we're going to stop here. All of it's just tons of random questions. If you want to hear all the rest of the random questions, just go to Legal Mindset's page and watch it there. This video is already long enough on my end. I did what I normally do: double the length of a video. Now, overall, this was a great video to watch. I really liked all the missing information. Like, for instance, I wasn't coming in necessarily from a direct legal standpoint on my side. I just know how contracts work in general in a lot of scenarios. So this makes more sense. A lot of it was basically fleshed out a bit more and made more sense from a legal standpoint, especially with how California fucking works. So is VShojo probably bankrupt? I'm not 100% sure on that, but it is leaning towards that. It makes a lot more sense that they took that money from those their top earning VTubers, as well as every charity thing that was potentially running, just to pay the bottom line, so they didn't go completely under. And they were trying to find a way out around it, but it doesn't matter. That was still probably illegal. So anyway, it's going to be very interesting to follow over the next couple of weeks to months to whatever, and to see if it even makes it into a court setting. If it does, that's going to be very fun to follow. It'll probably be settled out of court, though, so there is that. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. Definitely a lot more informative than the last video. And maybe we'll check out the Kson video. I don't know. This might have enough information in between. I might still do the Kson video, but not actually post it. Like, for instance, I might prep record it, and we'll see. And if I don't like it, I just won't upload it. As for other stuff, I will. It is time to finally do a Magic the Noah video. And then Legal Mindset has a bunch of other smaller videos to see everything as well. So definitely go check out their page. And if you haven't seen this video, I really hope that you at the very least go put it on in the background and go watch it over there, because you shouldn't be watching here until you've watched the originals. And that's on all of my videos. So always go watch the originals if you can first, and then come back here. Or just watch the original and never come back here. I don't care. Anyway, have a good day, everyone.